We're going to call the meeting, sorry, a little loud, didn't mean to shock everybody. Oof. We're going to call the meeting to order. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Leaflet. Here. Trustee Lawler.
Here.
Trustee Lawrence.
Here.
Trustee Healy.
Here.
Trustee Katsinas.
Here.
Trustee Milani.
Here.
Mayor Dodge.
Here.
We have a quorum. Would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we jump into the meeting, quick show of hands. We all here for pickleball? All right. So I think all right, perfect. We got you. All right. So what let's consider item E6, Dugan Park redevelopment scoping first. Fair? All right.
All right.
So typically the way we do this is we'll have a staff presentation and a discussion, and then a number of folks have signed in, and we'll take it from there. So, George or Ray, take us through the issue.
Yeah, Ray has we're getting his PowerPoint ready. This is regarding a proposed descoping at Dugan, and instead moving the pickleballs to Sportsplex. And so, still getting ready there. It's all coming together here really quickly. There we go. Take it away, Ray.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Board. Thank you for this opportunity.
Hang on. Everybody can hear Ray okay? Yeah. Okay. Good, Ray.
Thank you. Okay, so this first slide is just an overview of the redevelopment project. So while pickleball is the highlight of the project, there's a lot more that's taking place as a part of the redevelopment. So you can see in all the different elements there, it includes the 8 additional pickleball courts plus the 2 in the back. So in the back, there's 1 dedicated court there now and a basketball court that would be converted. We're proposing that those 2 remain as a part of the redevelopment plan. The tennis courts would also remain, but those 8 pickleball courts that you see on the south side would be pulled from this project, and potentially the restroom building as well. We would also add in those 2 bocce ball courts that you see just south of the parking lot. That parking lot is rather large, and it's made large purposely for all those pickleball courts, so that potentially could be reduced. In the reduction of the parking lot size and the 8 pickleball courts potentially gives us the money to build those courts over at the Sportsplex. The project includes the full-size soccer field, a baseball field, a new playground, a new half basketball court. So the basketball court is in the back by the tracks now, and it's problematic with kids playing too late at night, and a lot of times causing problems for those in the neighborhood and for the police. And then a pavilion in that area. The south parking lot would still be developed. Down at the bottom there, number 14, that's a detention pond, and that pond could be reduced in size, again, saving some money because there's less permeable pavers or permeous paver in the redevelopment. So the overall goal is to build a dedicated pickleball complex. As the Director of Recreation and Parks, I realize the importance of having an amenity like this for our residents. I think the question just is this the right place for this project? So 10 courts in a location that's close to residents, that's a permanent impact to those that live in there, and so that's where the concern comes in. Pickleball noise is caused by the paddles and balls. It's a sharp, high-pitched noise with the pop. If anybody's heard pickleball, they're very familiar with that. 1 court there now doesn't cause a lot of problems. The tennis courts there are also striped. They don't get as much action with pickleball as much as the dedicated court. The farthest court in the plan, to go back here, so that back court where the basketball court is, the 2 along the tracks, that's 350 feet. The closest one, close to that pavilion there near Park Lane, that's only 250 feet. So that's some of the concern. The recommendations when building pickleball courts is that courts should be built a minimum of 500 feet from a residence. Oops, sorry. You can see that illustrated a little bit better here in just a Google Earth image. So the far court's there at 350 feet and the closest court's at approximately 250 feet. We would expect that the courts, when they're built, they'll be played from April to October, weather permitting, so nice extended season for players. We would expect play to be from 8 to 8. Could be earlier. I drove by a couple new courts out where I live this morning, and people were out there at 7 a.m. this morning. With 10 courts, we could accommodate 40 players at a time. Pickleball does have a loud noise, so one of the things that they note is one court at 100 feet creates 70 decibels of noise, which is similar to a freeway or a vacuum. One court at 200 feet is 64 decibels, so similar to constant noise in a restaurant or an air conditioner running. It's a high-pitched frequency of 1.2 hertz, similar to the beeping of a garbage truck backing up, and then you have the shouting of players as they should as they're enjoying their play. So there's a lot of ambient noise that comes with pickleball. There are remediation strategies. Each of them have some concerns, so you could do sound barriers with shrubs, or a combination of the two, but that creates security issues. So we had tried that with a different court once before, and it created some security concerns, and both by the residents and our police, so those were not utilized. You could restrict hours of play, but then that's kind of ineffective for the players. If you have limited hours early in the morning when it's cool, that's when people want to play before it gets hot in the middle of the day. So it's a negative impact to players. You could mandate soft paddles and balls. That would have to be enforced, and that does impact the quality of play. Most players prefer the faster paddles or hard paddles than the faster balls. The other option, again, is to construct homes or the pickleball courts 500 feet from homes. Common complaints, and this is not just something that we're just devising. This is a common complaint across the country. You can look at this in any news agency, in any Google search, is there's a lot of complaints to agencies. So while we haven't heard a lot from the neighborhood, and I'll share some of that with you, we're pretty sure that the minute you open this court, you're going to get complaints forever and ever, because it's just a loud noise. It's a great sport, but it's just very close to the residents. So there's just a concern that goes with that. It could result in police involvement. So in other communities, there have been police involvement because of altercations between players and residents. It's not uncommon to have lawsuits and have courts removed that were built because of noise. These are some of the headlines that we've noticed from pickleball players in different communities around the country. So in Boise, Idaho, there was a suit filed against the city, and it was claimed that it was relentless and auditory assault. In Tennessee, there was an ordinance that required all courts be built 500 feet from homes. You can see in Berwyn, Pennsylvania, a lawsuit against the YMCA forced the disuse of the courts, so they cannot use the courts anymore. In Maple Grove, Minnesota, the courts were removed due to the noise impact, and in Peachtree, Georgia, the city council mandated that all courts be built 1,000 feet from homes. We did have a community meeting not too long ago. Attendance was not very strong. There was only 5 people that attended, but the 5 people that were there did express a strong concern in the courts being there and affecting their quality of life. So again, there's just a concern. We are all in favor of pickleball courts, in favor of our players having this great recreation amenity. There's just concern about a permanent impact to those that live close to the courts. So the recommendation is to reduce the courts from 10 to 2, and then to issue an RFP for design and engineering to build courts behind the sportsplex. Also to reevaluate the need for the restrooms if the pickleball courts are removed and the size of the parking lot. I'm not sure the restrooms would be needed, and it would save a substantial amount of money. The restrooms are projected to be about $388,000, so that would fund a lot of pickleball over at the sportsplex, as might the reduction in the parking lot size. The sportsplex doesn't have any residents close by. You can see that open space behind the building. When the building was first built, that was supposed to be an indoor pool, but now that we acquired and own and run the Orland Park Health and Fitness Center, we don't really need a pool anymore. The village has a pool that serves residents very well. So it's not in close proximity to homes. It has restrooms already within the facility. It has an air-conditioned lounge, which is adjacent to the pickleball courts would be. And it has staff supervision that can monitor the courts and actually keep players safe should something happen on the courts. And that would be the end of the presentation.
I guess what, we've got a number of people who've signed in, so happy to take some comments. The typical rules are, let's keep it to the topic. Let's be mindful of everyone's time. We'll allow 3 minutes. So I'm just going to take these in the order that they were turned in. And we could certainly, if questions come up, we could certainly refer back to staff, but why don't we just go ahead and start with the comments, and then we'll have board comments. Did you want to do board comments first?
Can we do comments?
Would you prefer board comments first?
Motion so we can discuss it?
We could.
Should we do the motion, or are we just going to do comment first?
Well, we can do it either way. We've typically done these fairly casually, but I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawler.
I would like to make a motion to open this for discussion. This item. E.
Motion for voting.
What was that one? 6.
All right, Trustee Lawler, will you read the motion that's in the packet?
Yep.
Before you do that, I just want to remind everybody in the audience, which is why I wanted the comments first, given the presentation. This motion is specific to de-scoping Dugan. It doesn't have the language we're going to adopt in the near future with the recommendation for looking at Sportsplex. So when you hear this motion, just understand what was in front of us.
Yeah.
1 second.
Mr. Mayor, I move to recommend to the village board de-scoping the redevelopment of Dugan Park, reducing the total number of pickleball courts from 10 to 2 unlit pickleball courts, eliminating lighting for the 2 existing tennis courts, exploring the elimination of the restroom building, and planning for the following elements in the redevelopment: 2 bocce ball courts, a pavilion, half basketball court, new playground, a 360 by 210 soccer field, a 60-foot baseline baseball field, improvements to the north and south parking lots, landscaping, sledding hill, and all amenities in the support of the redevelopment.
And, there's an and.
And to authorize the village manager to execute all related contracts subject to village attorney review.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any comments from the board?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Lawrence?
So my comment is that typically, I know I'm new to this position, but typically we would have non-scheduled citizens and visitors for agenda-specific items to be able to comment before we took a vote.
Typically. But that's if we follow the strict order of the agenda. I thought we had just agreed to let everybody get out of here in a decent amount of time. Your point's
Right,
well-
excuse me, so I wasn't clear. If we hear from them first, whoever has to speak on this, then we will better know how we should vote.
Okay, we can do that. I'm asking for board comments first. So are there any other comments? I will call for the citizens to come up and speak in just a moment. I wanted to afford the trustees an opportunity to speak.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Milani.
I think it's apropos to let the citizens speak first. I just wanted a motion open so we could have an open discussion.
Certainly options on Robert's rules. Does anybody object to letting the citizens speak before we have a board discussion?
No objection.
No objection.
Outstanding. All right. Megan Davies. So we'll try and keep it, we're not going to be harsh about the 3 minutes, but if you could target 3 minutes, that'd be great.
I'll try to do my best. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
letting me speak.
No worries.
My name is Megan Davies. I have been a resident of Orland Park for the past 9 years. During this time, I've witnessed many changes to Dugan Park, some of which have not been positive. We've lost 2 buildings, including the Cultural Center. We've lost bagpipers, football practices, and the water fountain, things that myself and many others truly enjoy. While the initial park revamp was introduced, it quickly became apparent that individuals from outside our community attended the meetings with a pre-planned agenda to push forth the installation of pickleball courts. Some even brought detailed diagrams and specifications outlining their vision. However, they failed to mention that a single pickleball court can produce sound levels up to 70 decibels from 100 feet away. I'm glad that that was brought up tonight. Let's just say that also at 80 decibels, it causes noise-induced hearing loss. When speaking with neighbors who live close to the park, who would be directly impacted by these changes, every one of them expressed that they did not want the pickleball courts. Many also felt discouraged, saying that their input that didn't matter, and the village had already decided to go forward with the pickleball after the first meeting. At the first meeting, I personally raised questions about protecting the Frisbee golf area, preserving mature trees, and incorporating native perennial flowers into the landscape. Sadly, my concerns were quickly dismissed and overshadowed by the strong push for pickleball. When I later learned that the village plans to build 8 additional pickleball courts, bringing the total to 10, I was shocked. This number feels excessive, especially considering the enormous amount of money that has been allocated towards these improvements that could more equitably be used to improve the entire park, not just serve one specific interest. Recent photos of the park highlight areas that clearly need attention. The main park sign that has been defaced with graffiti. Bags of garbage are often left behind after events at the pavilion. Frisbee golf platforms are overgrown with weeds. A metal post, once supporting a trash can, remains exposed and presents a serious tripping hazard. Erosion around a well-trafficked tree has left roots exposed, threatening the tree's health. 3 picnic table benches are outdated and also severely unlevel and unsafe. If the village truly values Dugan Park and the residents who are directly affected by these decisions, especially when it comes to noise, safety, and overall use of the shared space, I urge you to reconsider your priorities. Let's invest in meaningful improvements that reflect the needs of the entire community, not just those of a select few. And here are also some of the images that I've gathered from the park with those things that need improvement very, very badly.
Do you want to make sure, okay, we'll take these, make sure we get it distributed. Thank you. Good? Peggy Campbell, am I reading this right? Sorry, without my glasses. Peggy Campbell? If you could just introduce yourself when you get to the microphone.
Okay.
You can adjust it.
In case you didn't hear, my name is Peggy Campbell, and I'm here to talk to you about the changes that are being considered at this time. I think my first question, and the one that most of us really want to know, is why is this all going forward for 2 years? Lots of planning, lots of input, lots of money being spent, and all of a sudden, within the last month, bang, this project is dead. I think that's something we would all like to have answered. And also in response, I think I would say that, as you all have said, pickleball is certainly a very quickly growing sport. I think you need to do everything to support the people in the community who want to play pickleball. There's really not that many places that they can play, and I think this would be a good expansion with these 10. You show certain, I don't know, I guess from the presentation I was a little surprised that somehow you found across the nation 5 cases that were brought to court, and who knows if those cases were worth anything. So are you afraid you're going to be sued if you put up these pickleball courts? Have there been a lot of problems that the law enforcement has to be involved with in pickleball courts? I'm kind of doubting that that's going to happen. The other thing I want to say is that there are many sports throughout the community, and all of those sports cause noise. You know, if you live by Schussler Park, if you live by any other park, they're playing football, they're playing soccer, they're playing all kinds of things. There's all kinds of noise going on. If I buy a house across from a park, I expect there's going to be noise at that park. There's going to be congestion at that park. Didn't seem like there was a lot of concern about that until the last month. And I think I'm really wondering, what's this timing all about? Thank you.
Jeff is a Pushy. Did I say that right? Thanks. Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Aducci, 14825.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses on. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry. Jeff Aducci, I'm at 14825 Holly Court. I've been there for about 7 years now. The kind of just an open question. There's currently 2 pickleball courts one at Heritage Park, one at Prairie Park, both less than 150 feet away from residents. Have there been any complaints filed in regards to noise about those? And additionally, speaking about the graph that is from Bob Unitich, in the How Loud is Pickleball paper that he wrote, the report references a 70 decibel sound level. In reality, that was the maximum level recorded, whereas the average sound level was 59 decibels at 100 feet away. Moving to 250 feet away, that goes down to 51 decibels, which is just 1 decibel over the threshold that he prescribes as the fair amount. Additionally, the court cases that were mentioned, in Maple Grove, Minnesota, the court was located 70 feet away from residents. In Berlin, Pennsylvania, the YMCA, it was 100 feet away from residents. And in Boise, Idaho, it was 71 feet away. The other ones were only preemptive measures. They were not reactive. Additionally, with the, I know shouldn't be referencing the sportsplex, but by moving to the sportsplex, it does make it more difficult for people who do not have cars, whether it be children or anybody else who can walk or ride their bikes to the park. It's very accessible right now being at Dugan, whereas in sportsplex, you'd have to go across 159th, creating possible danger for someone maybe driving or riding a bike or walking, especially children. That's all I have. Just wanted to bring those facts up.
Thank you. Chris Rayner.
Hi there, board members. My name is Chris Rayner. I've been a resident since birth in Orland Park in 1993 on 10035 Holly Court. I've played at Dugan Park. I've been to the library. I've been to Robert Davidson Center through summer school. I enjoy that park many, many years of my life. And when I first heard about these new additions into Dugan Park, I was very excited. Now, granted that maybe the number of the pickleball courts can be questionable, but I don't think removing 8 of them and just remaining with 2 is going to be helpful. Currently, me and my wife do participate in playing pickleball, and there have been numerous occasions where we couldn't play because there wasn't an open court, whether it be on the tennis courts or on the one dedicated court for pickleball. So I agree with both Peggy and Jeff here as far as the concerns there. I think the timing is interesting nonetheless. And maybe questionable on the decibel presentation that was given us earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Strasser.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Jenny Strasser. I live on the edge of Dugan Park. Thank you. My concern, along with many other residents, is all about the noise. It's a small neighborhood that fringes this, and we are not saying no pickleball. We're just saying not as many as been proposed. As Ray has just pointed out, a move to another area will still have 3 or 4 courts to play on. If I'm not mistaken, sometimes even tennis courts can be relined and play pickleball. I do play pickleball also, so I enjoy the game. There are some people that were at a meeting that I did not attend that felt that the decision was made that this was going to be this many courts. And at that time, I was the one that was pushing the bocce ball courts. And some people might remember that, and I like to joke saying that if you break your ankle playing pickleball, you can still play bocce ball. So we got our courts, and thank you for those that have voted for us. So again, well-documented noisy game, but it is fun. Myself and some other of our neighbors walked around our neighbors that fringe the actual park, and we have 52 signatures saying, my signature expresses the desire to keep the peace of our small neighborhood environment. Therefore, I oppose the installation of the proposed 8 pickleball courts. Our preferred alternative is to reduce the number of pickleball courts. I'm going with what Ray is recommending to 2 courts, and I have that petition here.
Could you turn that in, please?
Pardon?
That petition, we'll take it.
Yeah.
Do you have any other comments?
Pardon?
Any other comments?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
No one else is signed in. Any comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Katsinas?
Yes, this project has been in the works for just about 2 years now, right? Ray, if I'm not, about 2 years. It goes back when we started. Actually, it might have been a little earlier after, talking about the old library and that. But it was kind of interesting because the slides you presented now were never shown before. And that is a concern for me. The staff thought it was such a great idea that we went out and we got a grant for $600,000. So, and we've worked hard the last couple of years saving money to build that park. That was our goal. So I think by my estimate, we've had 14 or 15 different meetings on this. And just in the last month, the plan's out the window. After 2 years of planning with at least 15 different engagements. You know, we had planned this, we had discussed the noise, we discussed the traffic, we discussed the lighting, we discussed the berm. Is there not a berm around this park? And there's a railroad track right there too, where the parks are, or one of the courts are close to. But is there not a berm on the west or something I'm remembering?
On the west side.
Okay. And then we also had talked about possibly putting up, testing it for the year and seeing how that goes, and possibly putting up, I thought some fabric was mentioned at one time.
There were supposed to be wind screens, but those wouldn't be sound barriers.
Okay. Or even landscaping. And I think to one resident's point, I don't know that we've had a lot of complaints or arguments or fights at the pickleball courts or we have one dedicated pickleball court, correct?
Correct.
And then how many tennis courts can you play pickleball?
There's 2 there, and there's 14 around the town.
Okay, but one, I've known, I don't play pickleball, I plan to play it like other people, but I don't play it, but I know how engaging it is, and I will say this is one of our most physically fit audiences I've seen. They're really in great shape, so compliments to you. But no, I would like to see this project go forward. I'd be very mindful of the concerns of residents that live around the park, but I know at one time Pioneers played there. They had Girl Scouts and veterans things at the Davidson Center. There was always a lot of activity at that park. Probably gotten used to the peace and quiet, but I know that park back in its day when my kids were young, like the residents spoke, I was there all the time for Girl Scouts and brownies and for the library. So I know it's been quiet now, but it has always been a park. But I support keeping our original plan that we've talked about for the last 2 years, that we budgeted, and that we've gotten a $600,000 grant for. And I'm sure we have an excellent police department that will monitor anything that happens. And of course, most people playing here live in Orland Park. We really don't have a lot of problems with our residents arguing, especially over a game of pickleball. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leafblad?
I think that what we've heard today is that there are different interests involved here. There are over 50 people who signed a petition saying they didn't want the noise. So I think the issue is, why is it coming up now? Well, clearly, we have some things to talk about. Clearly, not everybody feels like they've been heard, and clearly not everybody expressed their point of view, or at least felt like they have now expressed it where I can't speak to what happened 2 years ago. So I think the issue is here, can we find a compromise? Does it have to be 10 or 2? Can we live with 4 courts? I mean, and the fact that we're building them by the Sportsplex, I think, or we could build them by the Sportsplex, I think, could promote things like tournaments and other things like that. And there's parking there, there are places, there's the whole Sportsplex there, so there are all the amenities with that. There are places to eat near there, and there are things to do, so it could encourage even more activity around pickleball. So I think that what we're seeing today is that there is cause to reconsider how we're doing it, and that there are people who say that the 10 pickleball courts are not things they want to live by. So there are people who want them, there are people who don't. This is the way the world works, right? So what can we do as we engage in this discussion to find a way that everybody can live comfortably in their homes, right? So, I mean, I guess that's what the public comment to me has revealed, and hopefully this is something we can work out together. That's all.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawler?
Yeah, I reaffirm what Joanna said. It's never too late to listen to residents and to reconsider projects. And again, we're not looking at eliminating pickleball as people have thought we were doing. We're looking at possibly moving them and compromising to avoid future issues in Orland Park. The last thing we want to do is get involved in more lawsuits and then have to tear out 10 pickleball courts because we didn't consider, the impact it would have on a community. Too often we do other projects that maybe we haven't researched enough and what their impacts on the community will be. To further up, I have a question for Ray. But before I get to that, when we first heard about possibly descoping this and moving this because of the noise, I had the opportunity to go out to the park with Ray to kind of, as you know, some of us are new trustees and we're still getting caught up on some of the projects that were previously approved. We weren't at the park less than 5 minutes when we had a resident come up and start complaining about 2 people playing pickleball at 6 in the morning. And so we have set times, 8 to 8, and it comes, it's hard to enforce those. So I guess my question, Ray, is if we move this to Sportsplex, would we be able to open it up to earlier playing times at 6 a.m. and expanding it till 10 p.m.?
Sportsplex is open 5:30 to 10 Monday through Friday, and it opens at 7 on the weekends. I think it closes at 9 on Saturday and 7 on Sunday. So we'd be open all those hours.
So we would essentially be adding more hours and opportunity for people to play.
We could, yes.
Okay. So I just think in the spirit of compromise, it is probably a better idea to take a step back and look at this and say, what's going to work for everybody? It's not just one interest of the pickleball players, because I have played pickleball and it's a great game. We're not against it. But I understand residents. Residents have lived in that neighborhood for a long time. And people say, well, you moved next to a park. Well, why did you move next to a park? And I would make that argument. Yeah, you moved next to a park. But when they moved next to that park, they didn't have pickleball. So now we're changing it. And so that could possibly have an effect on their homes. So I think it's important to take a step back. Let's re-examine this. And, I think we have a viable new place for these pickleball courts to be used. We're going to expand the amount of time and hours that people could play. And Ray, I believe we can do it for the same amount of money, correct?
We would have to do the work to determine the amount of money. So at this time, we don't know for sure, but I would think that it'd be a similar cost per court.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
so let me see if I understand this. On May 19th, we all sat up here and approved a change order to continue engineering and to continue solving and getting answers to questions. And then a month later, we magically have another community meeting and 5 people show up with concerns, and conveniently now we're going to descope part of this project. I understand the Sportsplex, let me get to that. So after multiple meetings over the course of years with community input, along with the Rec Advisory Board working on this, staff has magically hit their head on something and are totally ready to remove the courts. We didn't have information like this. We had positive information when we were given this. Now, all of a sudden, everything's negative. The spin continues, right? So, people are saying, it's quite possible that people came out here trying to promote pickleball because they like to see pickleball as a sport. But were all these people at this meeting residents? Did we verify they were all residents when the 5 people showed up? The 5 people? I was one of the 5. Okay. We had 3 people that lived close by. They were complaining about noise. One person who lived close by we were talking about. Okay. Right. So, please wait for my comments. So something really doesn't make sense, right? So the noise concerns were brought to our attention when we first discussed this park. And if I recall correctly, from our past meetings, the noise was not an issue. The parking concerns were not really considered an issue. Traffic concerns. There used to be an administration building, a library, a cultural arts center, and a park that had Pioneers, the Knights, baseball, and kids playing. By any chance, did you guys know when everybody clapped in here, we hit 82 decibels? So by clapping at a baseball game, we're creating more noise than that possible pickleball, right? So something just...
Hang on, let's let Trustee Malani finish his comments.
Yes. So, the lighting, I think, is also a possible issue that people brought up. The lights are going to be facing away from the houses, right? So we've done that at Schuessler Park. We haven't had issues or complaints with the lights at Schuessler Park, right? So again, things not making sense to me. The Sportsplex move, we're talking about this. Moving it to Sportsplex, would people have to pay to get into it?
Do you want to address that question, Ray?
I mean, if the board decided that it were to be free, it could be used free, because you can walk into the sportsplex all the way through the lounge to the pickleball courts without paying. So all of the only thing that you pay for is the gyms, soccer, and the fitness center. So you could use the pickleball courts for free if that were determined.
So we would move pickleball courts to a place where people pay to work out, play basketball, run on a track, use exercise equipment, but go ahead and use the pickleballs for free.
And
Doesn't make sense either, right? How about we keep amenities in our parks where they belong, right? You know, I think that makes sense.
Hang on. Trustee Milani, if I may interrupt. George, did you want to add a comment?
We offer free for residents. We do the walk track is free for residents. So there is a program already that's in place, something similar to that. And Ray, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. If you're a resident, you can use the track for free.
Okay, so the track, I apologize.
Trustee Milani, any other comments?
Yeah, so I just, you know, if we're gonna make people pay for this, I just think that would be a poor idea. But, you know, our noise ordinance also covers 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., right? And I believe the lower limits on that is 80 decibels. Can anybody confirm that for heavy machinery? I can, it's on the code that I'm reading, so it's good. So I just don't see a need to move this to a new location when we don't even know if that piece of land would be 100% viable to even do so, unless we've already done pre-engineering to find that out. Did we do engineering to find this out?
No, we haven't done any of that yet.
Okay. And will we lose our OSLAG grant if we make changes to the current project?
I had spoken to the state previously, and they are open to the idea of descoping, but I would have to talk to them about the extent of descoping.
Okay. All right, thanks. That's all the comments and questions I have. Anybody else like to interrupt before I finish?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
I didn't hear that answer, Ray, but I mean, I just want to make sure that that $600,000 grant is a very big part of the financing. Are we George, are we guaranteed to get that if we descope this even partially?
So as indicated in the staff write-up, before we finalize anything, what we're looking for today is that's why we're at the committee of the whole, we're looking for some direction. After tonight's meeting, we will reach out to the state regarding the Oslo grant. Like Ray said, he's had preliminary discussions about it. Obviously, there is still a park program that's going to happen here, and it's just going to depend on what that is. Whatever we do, the village is putting in more than $600,000 into this park. So we're going to have that discussion with the state. Once we have that information, then in order to finalize it, you folks need to have that information to make a informed decision.
But we have been awarded the $600,000 as of today.
Correct.
And so we have the money.
Hang on.
I would.
Wait, excuse me, Trustee Healy, hang on. I appreciate your question. Please direct them to me on the board. We'll direct them to staff. As everybody just heard, we will officially ask the state an answer on the grant. We don't have an official answer, but we will get it. If everybody's kind enough to contact us, we'll make sure we tell you via email. Hang on. Did you have any other comments, George?
Nope, that's it.
Trustee Healy, do you want to finish your comments?
I'm concerned that we, going back to the state to get things changed, I'm just concerned that we're not going to get that $600,000, which is significant. It sounds like, yeah, that's my only comment.
Any other trustees? Hang on, ma'am, I'll get to you. Any other trustees?
Mr. Chairman.
Hang on, Trustee Milani, I want to make sure the other trustees have all had a chance to speak. Trustee Lawrence?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawrence?
I have been contacted by several residents, both for pickleball courts and those who find the noise to be objectionable for their neighborhood. I've heard both of what they've said. I've only heard from one on the other pro pickleball court. However, I see that there are many people here supporting that. I do note that one thing, or I was told this by several of the residents who were against the noise, that they apparently felt like they did not have a choice, that their voice was being shut down. And so when they spoke with the neighbors, trying to get additional support, they told their neighbors, we have no choice, they're going forward, there's nothing we can do. I don't know what happened from then till recently, but I did hear about a meeting that would be with staff and residents, so I was able to attend it, and I did attend. And at that meeting, I heard from people that said that they clearly felt the decision had been made. And also regarding the Rec Advisory Board and the Rec Advisory Board agreeing to it, I have also the understanding from residents that the Rec Advisory Board was constituted with people who generally agreed with certain executives in the village, and that those who expressed a difference of opinion were kicked off the Rec Advisory Board. So is it possible that the Rec Advisory Board didn't have a balance? We have a lot of different opinions here. Maybe we can find a better compromise than where we're at now. I'd like to explore that. Also, no one talked to me about traffic or parking lots. So I'm not sure that that was the issue. No one mentioned it as being noise, they only mentioned pickleball. So I can't speak in that regard.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
so instead of rushing to descope this right now and then probably half-bake a motion to move this over to Sportsplex, why don't we go back and do our homework? Why don't we go back and figure out what it would take to do this at Sportplex, figure out what the cost would be at Sportsplex, find out if the land is actually feasible to do it at Sportsplex, whether or not we're going to lose our OSLED grant, and budget this for how much it might actually cost to make the changes, because we're still going to have to do everything else at Dugan Park. The park is still going to be remodeled. We're still going to add all of the amenities in there that we want to. This whole pickleball debate, let's come up with an optimal decision together versus us, 5 of us probably voting yes, and 3 of us vote, or 4 voting yes and 3 voting no tonight, and it moves forward anyway without a full plan, and come up to an agreement.
Any other comments from the board? Mr. Mayor. Trustee Leafblad?
I am grateful for people coming tonight. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me now? I'm grateful that everybody came to this meeting and spoke up. I'm grateful that the people who don't want the pickleball courts spoke up. I'm sad to know that there were people who did not want them or had concerns about them felt like they couldn't speak up. This is exactly what we don't want. We want people to come and speak up. So I think it's possible to come up with a compromise and figure things out. We know that we have to check with the state to see what our possibilities are in terms of descoping. So clearly we have more information to gather. And we can gather that information and revisit this so that we can create the best park for the people who live close to it as well as people who visit it.
Are there any other comments from the board?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawrence?
I did remember just one thing. So regarding descoping, to whatever extent we descope, that's money saved, okay, that could be used elsewhere. And in addition, it's my understanding that the state of Illinois has reinstituted, I'm not sure what the term is, the program to provide grants for these sort of things. So a plan at Dugan or at Sportsplex could also potentially bring us similar sort of assistance for a build out there next year or the year after, that sort of thing. So I think this balance of saving some money here and putting it there, and potentially, if we were to lose some, maybe we don't get all of it. Maybe the state says you have fewer pickleball courts, so you're getting less. I'm not sure that would happen because we're doing a lot of other things there. The bocce ball courts, the new basketball court, seating areas, lots of play equipment, and even some improvements to the play equipment that maybe weren't originally envisioned, because I have heard some residents comment, regarding some other things regarding the play equipment. So regarding the money and the balance of how to pay for this, I think there are more options than we were originally thinking are available.
Ma'am, would you like to come up and address the board? Please state your name.
Hello, my name is Janet Niehoff. I have been a resident of Orland Park since 1978. First of all, I would like to know how much money has already been spent on this plan that was approved. That's everyone's taxpayer dollars, whether you're pro or against. That's our money that's already been spent. And we've been waiting 2 years to see how this park is gonna play out. So that's a problem. Number two, Trustee Lawrence, you spoke about the Park Recreation Advisory Board. My husband is on that board. I did not appreciate your comments. Meetings were held. Ray, were postcards sent out to residents? Were they invited to meetings? Were multiple meetings held?
Excuse me. The questions come to me. I'll direct them to staff. Just enforcing the rules that they've been laid down before I showed up.
I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with that.
Fair enough.
So could you ask Mr. Piattoni?
We
were
will ask
meetings
Mr.
held?
Piattone, and our plan is everything that was discussed tonight that were questions, pro and con, open questions from the board, we will get back to each and every person here who lets us know you were here. We will
Okay.
answer your questions.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
My other comment about that board is it is made up of residents who volunteer their time. And for someone to sit up there, not having ever attended one of the Parks and Recreation Board meetings, and to say that they were pushing someone else's agenda is not very kind.
Just since you're up, just go take the microphone, introduce yourself, and then, sir, we'll call you.
My name is Paul Squara. I live at 14800 Highland Avenue, right down the street from the park. I've been to some of these meetings from the get-go and the first one. Me and my friend here that lives right down the street from us have been to the first one, and we were overtaken by pickleball. We went there to see what the park, to get our input, and there was maybe 3 or 4 people from the community that live around that park. The rest were pickleball people from the rest of Orland Park. So in that being said, we were not given the chance and the voice to like say what we wanted in that park. As a matter of fact, I wanted a splash pad. We talked about it and it was shot down right away because pickleball was on the agenda from minute 1 of the very first meeting. So going forward about, yes, has there been postcards sent? Yes. Has there been multiple meetings? Yes. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I work, I can't make all these meetings. And truthfully, Mayor Dodge, I appreciate you now getting the emails out on what happens in Orland Park every day because that's how I get most of my information. I can't make all these meetings. I can't go. It's too hard. And for that small of a park that's inside of a community to get 10 pickleball courts and then having, so there's what, 4 players per court?
Could be.
I mean, that's a lot of traffic in that little area. And then you have 3 schools right next to those parks. I mean, it's gonna get congested like crazy. And I don't think that the people or the residents down in that area realize that. And again, pickleball was such a big thing. Nobody understood how like the logistics are gonna work. I mean, it's a tight area, you know, and again, the residents that have lived there have moved because all of my immediate neighbors have been there for 3 or 4 years. So again, being said, like, yeah, there used to be a busy area. Yes, I remember it being a busy area because I used to go to that library and play there. But it's not like that anymore. That's why we chose to live there. And again, being changes in this park, now it's going to bring that back. you know, a lot of those people are not gonna like that, unfortunately. And again, I think that the voices of the residents, immediate residents that live around there, were not heard.
I appreciate your comments. Sir, take one more comment, then we'll have more comments from the board, then we'll, I'm sorry, do you want to bring that up? Yeah, well, no, you can, here, bring this up, and then he can go. We'll call you next. We're kind of doing this a little bit out of, not the normal order, but let's have the conversation. We're all here.
Hi, my name's John Atkinson. I live at 11044 Woodstock Drive in the village. And I would respectfully ask, before this gets considered to be, or voted on to be descaled, or scaled back, I didn't know that term until tonight, but that you take into account what other people had to say. And one thing I read Mr. Piatoni's email, and I apologize, I did get here a little later, about sound barriers and potentially being a security concern. There is quite a viable solution, either plexiglass or different type of laminated glass that will certainly provide the decibel loss that some may desire. Not too bad of a cost. I don't know the exact cost by any means, but just at an 8-foot height, there's studies been proven that can happen, and the sound issue goes away, everybody's happy. So please take that into account, do some homework, don't make unilateral decisions after we've struggled waiting on this thing for 2 years. That's not right. Okay? Take your time, think it through. Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. I played pickleball a couple of times and I'm really out of shape, so, you know, I would love to get back to exercising. Besides the point, I attended that first meeting 2 years ago in July. I was 9 months pregnant at the time. When I walked into that meeting, it was very overwhelmingly pickleball enthusiasts there. And when we were trying to bring up topics that were outside of pickleball, as my friend Paul mentioned, we were constantly getting interrupted at that meeting. I believe Meg mentioned the same thing. We were trying to discuss the park as a total, what the playground would look like. What are we gonna do with the soccer field, the baseball field? And it kept going back to this myopic pickleball. I'm sure it's a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that people enjoy it. But again, I think we need to think about this park in its totality and not just a single sport. I really appreciate that the idea of the sportsplex or moving pickleball courts has been brought up, because I think it's really important to take our opinions and think of them thoughtfully. So I appreciate you listening to me, and thanks for your time.
No problem. Any other comments from the board? We've got a couple of comments and then an idea. Any other comments from the board? So obviously a lot's been discussed tonight. Pretty clearly people are passionate about pickleball, and I think the people who live in a neighborhood are passionate about not pickleball in their neighborhood. I think that's kind of that's just the way I see this kind of coming down. And I guess if you ask me, you know, where my head is at, it would be love the idea of expanding pickleball options broadly across the village. I'm not crazy about doing it in Dugan Park, just so we're all clear about my position. A number of things have been said. There's some open questions for staff. And, you know, there's no reason we have to vote tonight to de-scope this. So there's enough open questions about the grant, about the future costs. You know, there's viability at Sportsplex. There's some issues. There's some obvious misunderstandings about what Sportsplex is or is not. There might be other options in other parks to add pickleball courts to spread out the load, but that doesn't maybe get the cohesiveness of having 10 of them together, et cetera. So if the board's amenable, I'd be happy to entertain a motion to table the motion for tonight with very specific direction to staff, George, you and Ray, to go address some of the open questions that have been surfaced by the board.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Leafblad?
I move to table this issue.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. These motions don't have debate. It's pretty much call the roll, so we're going to do that. So all we're doing is tabling the proposed action while the staff continues to do more research. And then before we call the roll, I would like everybody here to find a way to let the village manager's office or my office know you were here and you want to be updated as this goes forward. There's a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Katsina?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye. So that means the motion is tabled for now. We got a lot of research to do, and we'll keep everybody here. If you let us know you were here, we'll keep you updated. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we're going to start an email list here. So if you can just start putting your email addresses down there, that way we can keep you in communication.
All right, we're going back to the regular agenda item, which is very exciting, so you guys are welcome to stay if you'd like. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Approval of minutes?
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, who asked to be recognized?
Okay, approval of the June 16th Committee of the Whole.
Wait a minute. Let's just wait.
All right, let's hold for a second. We'll wait. If you guys, excuse me, folks, we got to get out with the rest of the meeting, so if you guys could do the email list outside in the hallway, that'd be great. And then obviously, don't be afraid to share with your neighbors or your other pickleball fans or your competitors.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Katsinas?
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of June 16, 2025.
There a second?
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence? Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye. Why don't we take a 5-minute recess? Anybody disagree?
Agree.
Motion
to recess for 5 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I think we've covered exactly 2 items in 1 hour. So let's, all right. Do we need to do the roll call? Come back.
Yeah.
It's like, will you call the roll so we can reconvene the meeting?
Trustee Leiblatt?
Here.
Trustee Lawler? Here. Trustee Lawrence?
Here.
Trustee Healy?
Here.
Trustee Katsinas?
Here.
Trustee Malani?
Here.
Mayor Dodge.
Here.
The next agenda item is non-scheduled citizens and visitors for agenda-specific public comment.
We've got a couple of folks who've signed in. I think you guys want to sign in the issue on the, Janet? That's it, no, welcome back.
Hi, my name is Janet Niehoff. I live in the Colette Highlands subdivision, and I wanted to let you know that the 4th of July was a big mess. We were told to come and pick up parking passes so that we could use them for 4th of July, all of the concerts, any activities that are going on in Centennial Park West adjacent to our subdivision. At 8:45 on the 4th of July, we were waiting to try and get into our subdivision, which only residents should be allowed into, showing their pass. There was a policeman there, traffic was backed up a little bit, and all of a sudden, he pulled the horse or barrier away and just let everyone pull into our subdivision. I've lived in that subdivision for 16 years. We have never, ever had traffic like that. It was a mess. I'm also on our homeowners association board. I received numerous complaints from other residents. I can email you photos and video of what was going on, but it was, if we had to come in and pick up parking passes to get in, why were the police letting just everybody go in? I called the non-emergency number. I understand it's a very busy time. I mean, there's a lot going on the 4th of July. And I was told, if you want to make a complaint, we have to send an officer to your house. I said, I don't want to waste resources like that. I just want to tell you, whoever is supposed to be policing our entryway is not doing it. And then 10 minutes later, an officer called me back. He was very kind and just said, I can't come over. I said, I didn't want you to come. I want my complaint heard, and I want to know that with the concert coming up this Saturday, that we are not going to be facing this again. And I don't understand where the breakdown happened, that all of a sudden people were allowed to come into the subdivision and park for the fireworks there. So were you aware that this happened? Has anybody else called the police department? I would ask him, but I'm not allowed.
No. Put the questions on the table, because what I was going to suggest is we have your contact information.
Mhm.
We'll have the chief and George reach out to you about how it was handled, and then how we're going to handle it. Because if the promise wasn't delivered, there's an issue. So we
And
appreciate you bringing it up.
We've never had this issue in the past, so
Okay.
it's just very troubling. Thanks for your time.
No, we'll get in contact you. All right. Mr. Zabold, would you like to come up? We're going to take your item soon, but if you want to come up and make your comments now.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak here tonight. My name is Richard Bowles. I live in Farmway subdivision for over 30 years. I called, a couple years ago, I called to widen my driveway. So I called it and asked if I needed a permit to widen my driveway, to put gravel down the side of my driveway next to my garage. The woman I talked to, they answered the phone and said, you do not need that until you do asphalt or concrete. So I went around, I looked around, because I came up with it because I documented like over 60 people in my small neighborhood that either have wider driveways or parking next to the garage. So that gave me the idea of doing it this way. So then I proceeded to put the gravel down 2 years ago, roughly 2 years ago, June of 23, I believe I did it, to park a fifth wheel that we have. So we proceeded to do that 2 years ago, got the gravel installed. 2 years forward, I drove on it for 2 years. I was in construction. I know if you drive on it for a couple of years, it'll compact better, you'll have a better product. So I waited 2 years. About a month ago, I applied for a permit, and I was told that policies had changed, and I cannot do it any longer. And it was a 2-year-old project, so I was told the codes had changed, I cannot do the gravel pad, and I would have to just leave the trailer on the driveway. So putting the trailer next to the garage, I thought would be an improved aesthetics. Right now, it is basically my focal point of my house. You pull up, you see the trailer. I thought if I could get the trailer off this, it would improve the visual of the neighborhood. I also have a corner lot which has a great deal of space to accommodate the trailer. It will not encroach on anybody's neighbor easement or my neighbors. It would just, I think, improve the look of the property, plus get it off out of the side. So again, I've documented 60-something pictures. I'm hoping the board can reconsider the policy, at least go back to where something I've started 2 years ago that I can continue and finish, or at least upgrade, to try to upgrade the looks of my lot and ink this thing up as an eyesore.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
No, appreciate your comments. Please stay, because we're going to get to this item soon, so
Not
we
a
want to hear
problem.
this conversation.
Thank you.
Okay? There's no one else has signed in. Oh, you bring up the paper, no worries. Just please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Hillary Serena. I was here on June 2nd and actually raised the awareness of around the driveway widths. And so I'm going to kind of repeat a little bit of what I said before, but I've lived in Orland Park my entire life, born and raised here in Orland Park. I grew up in Old Orland, so the zoning of the R-3A, I believe I'm in. And I agree with the gentleman before me. Almost everybody in our neighborhood has a double wide driveway with either a single car garage and or even no garage. So a lot of people in our neighborhood have turned their garages into additional rooms. So they're going to a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom. And they have 2-width driveways. So for me, I have a single lane driveway. I have a 1-car garage. I went to file a permit as well since I can finally afford to put in some concrete double lane driveway, and was told that obviously the answer is no, we changed that ordinance back in November of 2023, I believe it was. So some of the things I would just like you guys to take into consideration when you're making the decision is typically in the past, lot sizes are typically analyzed for impermeability, so the surface area that does not absorb rainfall based on the ratio of permeable to impermeable areas. These lots with the 1-car garages are held to a different standard. There is no correlation between lot width and driveway width, and there's nothing in our ordinance that states about that. Again, multiple homes in our zoning area and on our street already have wider driveways, and there's no studies currently quoted in the ordinance showing any proof of the benefits to the community at large by making us have just the single lane driveways for 1-car garages. So I'm not asking for all of Orland, but I'm asking specifically for our zone. Thank you.
Next item, please.
2025-524, Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, Software Licensing Renewal.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Leafblad.
I move to approve a contract with Dell Technologies using Omnia Partners Contract C00000019611 for renewal of 3-year Microsoft Enterprise Agreement for an annual cost of $273,129.24 for a total 3-year cost of $819,387.72, and authorize the village manager to execute all related contracts subject to village attorney review.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Leafblat?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
Discussion of residential driveway widths.
George, you want to kick this off, or you want Steve to kick it off?
Steve has a very good PowerPoint. Steve, you can just take it.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Board of Trustees. So as was referenced, there was some modifications that were made to the Land Development Code a couple years ago. Should probably get a next slide since I got to do both jobs here. And this wasn't an actual change to the ordinance, it was a clarification. So for the newer trustees, the Land Development Code and the Village Code are separate documents. when we looked at, there were conflicts between the two. So the wider driveways were actually, even 3 years ago, were not allowed because the land development code restricted it. So we combined the two together so that they would be consistent. I do acknowledge the fact that that particular subdivision has a lot of one car or no car garages, and a lot of those garages that were converted living space left them with no garage, and we'll get to that shortly. So that's kind of the basis of where we were and the change that occurred. So we've been now consistently enforcing the code as opposed to applying two different sets of regulations depending on which reviewer saw which code. So we've been able to look at this now that this has been in place. We've been collecting data even before this complaint came in about some tweaks that we may need to make. We are only looking at the R3 and the R3A districts right now. These are the lots that are narrower, and the first person who, I forgot your name, Mr. Bowles, was it? It's a slightly different issue than this driveway width. It has to do with location of where things are parked and the surface that they're parked on. So we will respond to that if George asks us to do that, to give you the information on that. So I don't want to mix the two issues up right now. And so there is this kind of dilemma where we require 2 parking spaces for every detached single-family house, but these homes were built with 1 parking space, and we don't really allow tandem parking spaces to count for parking. But there's some potential negative side effects that might occur. As far as what's been going on in the neighborhood, we haven't looked into this with great detail because if I find out something, I have to do something about it. But there is some history in this neighborhood of things being done without being asking us first. I'm not saying that's what happened in all these cases, but we will look into that when we do bring this in front of the Plan Commission. So the area that, let's see, one of these is, okay, so west of West. So the R3A on the left side of the screen, that's the neighborhood that has mostly 1 or 0 car garages. Some of them have built garages behind or to the side if they were on corner lots that were separate from the house. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. This is an older subdivision. I'm not even sure if it was originally developed in the village, but regardless, that's the situation that's there on the ground. They also have slightly narrower road profiles, and the sidewalk is along the curb. So that's something that needs to be considered also. Okay. So we did some checking around randomly, what other towns do. Most of them have a standard size and not based off the size of the garage. They also vary on whether they taper as they get closer to the street. And they do kind of vary all over the place. So I think we need to look at our situation individually and see what best meets the needs for this particular neighborhood. So we were going to recommend, or we're thinking about recommending, for 1-car garages in the R3 and R3A. And again, these are narrower where you can't really pull the car or put a driveway on the side and still have enough room because of the driveway widths, be 18 feet. That's the size of 2 standard parking spaces. And I'll show you a picture later of what that looks like. Actually, this is kind of self-explanatory. And then we'll just clarify some of the widths in the table. For some reason, these 2 sections have a separate section describing the driveway widths, which makes us think that there was some additional consideration at some point where you were also thinking about maybe consolidating this all into one table, so we have to look in 2 or 3 different places. So we've got some pros and some cons. So one is to deal with the situation where we have a bunch of housing units that are basically legal non-conforming. They don't have 2 legal parking spaces where either car can get out without having to move another car. The wider driveways might make these properties potentially more valuable. And there are lots of inconsistent or non-conforming already situations in this neighborhood. The negative side has to do with the additional pavement. As we know, we do have issues with absorption into the ground in this town. We're a very high water table. We get a lot of rain. So there is some issues with permeability, particularly in the front of the house. This is what's running directly off into the storm sewers. That's one issue. So there's some environmental stuff in point 1. The second point, you could have, by widening the driveways, because these are so narrow, you may have people parking in front of their front door or large swaths of the front yard being paved. And then when we are adding wider curb cuts, that means we're reducing on-street parking. So there is some potential effect to neighbors where guests can park because the driveways can't handle a lot of cars. So there's some potential negative impact that we have to weigh to the neighbors by letting some people widen their driveways. That reduces on-street parking. So here's some examples. And again, we don't know anything about these. We didn't research whether these were put in legally. These are just some existing conditions. In this particular one, they have 24 feet. In this case, it looks like that they did convert their garage to living space, so the car doesn't go to a garage door. That might be a concern aesthetically. This is a 24-foot driveway. They actually went around the lamppost, which is in the driveway, and go basically up to their front door. So that's the aerial view and the front. Again, for this neighborhood.
Steve, you said this is which house is this in the area view? The one on the right?
It's the one in the middle.
One in the middle, okay, thank you.
So here's another situation where they've got the driveway that looks like used to maybe go to a garage. It's very wide and also leads into the back, and again, goes to the front door. So you have a large proportion of the front yard that is paved. In this case, they didn't remove the part that might have gone to the driveway before or gone to the garage before, and now it's all paved, including going into the back of the house. Oops. This was an interesting one. The neighbors got together and decided they were going to share their driveway at some points, but there is a little median in the middle. So great way of being neighborly. Hopefully all the future neighbors will get along with each other. But this results in, at some points, 58 feet wide of pavement. Pretty creative. Here's one where it looks like that they had enough width that they built a 2-car detached garage and replaced their 1-car garage and changed it to living space. But again, they didn't remove the old driveway. But it does show the tapering, although wider than we probably would like. So that's going down to a less of a curb cut. This is partially to the side. So here they're splitting the difference and kind of putting it on both sides of the garage and kind of centered it. But in this particular case, the 2 cars are parked side by side, neither of them will line up with the garage door. And here's an 18-foot driveway. This is what we're proposing. From the other picture, you can see that 4 cars do fit on there, although one is overhanging the sidewalk, which is we're not supposed to do, but we'll let that slide for now. But it's just talking about, we're kind of addressing the need of having 2 cars. This driveway now accommodates 4 cars. Here's another example of where it tapers down to 12 feet from 20, so that again, we're reducing the amount of pavement that's close to where the sewer inlets are for runoff. Some of the neighbors have these U-shaped driveways. You can have whatever feeling you like about these U-shaped driveways, but that is quite a lot of pavement again in the front yard. Okay, so those are just some examples, and I am open to feedback or discussion.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Katsinas?
Just had a quick question for Steve. Steve, does the code allow the driveways to go to the property line?
To the side property line?
Correct.
I believe we were supposed to be 1 foot off in most cases, unless there's a restriction in whatever, if there's an easement there that wouldn't allow it.
Utility, okay.
So we don't like them. So yeah, even the neighbors that got neighborly and shared are technically violating the code. But they may not have been violating when it happened. That's the thing. It's all about when these things occurred.
Mhm. The trick is over there, though, they're 60-foot lots. That's the hard thing. The width
they're
of those
very
lots
narrow.
in that 3 area in the H streets in Orland, they're very tight lots. So it's almost like they have to go a little bit into the front to park 2 cars sometimes.
I get it. That's
As
fine.
long as
It's
it's
a
18
design
feet.
issue that you guys, if you want to go with that policy, we'll run with that. But I hear what you're
No.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the backyards actually seem to be pretty large. It's just the widths are narrow. So
Trustee Lawler?
This for you, Steve. 18 feet, I think, would probably be fine, but if they wanted to expand it, would we consider it if they were using a permeable surface?
we would have to write that into the code. We had a bunch of provisions for offsets for stormwater. The problem is that over time, like we're gonna put in a rain garden, or we're gonna put in, plants that are native and will absorb water, but no one is checking every year to make sure these are being maintained. On commercial properties, it's easier for us to maintain these things. The problem is that if that gets replaced with lawn, for instance, if they were to choose the plant option, now that's grass and it's not doing what it's supposed to, and now we're having additional runoff. So unless things were like really permanent solutions, we were kind of shunning away from offsets. But it could be something that could be considered in a variance request, I guess, as a mitigating factor. But we'd have to make sure that, as we now know, putting in permeable pavers, doesn't mean you don't have to do anything forever. You have to vacuum that out every once in a while, replace the gravel in between and all kinds of things to make sure they function.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
just a clarification between the maximum driveway width and the apron width. What is the difference between the two again?
Yeah, so that people don't run over the sides of their yards at the street. That's not the case in this subdivision because the sidewalks are generally carriage walks. But we allow a little flare on the end of each driveway. So if the driveway width is 18, we would allow a 3-foot flare on each side, so it'd be 18 plus 6 at the curb line, so that you can actually turn the vehicle. You don't have to do the full turn once you get into the street.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's basically driveway and then.
And a
outlet,
flare,
which
yeah.
really doesn't give you any parking value or anything like that. It just makes it easier for accessibility.
Yeah, it depends how much space is between the driveways. It could potentially eliminate a parking space, but personally, I'd prefer that we have people start their turn slightly before they leave their driveway so that we don't have them backing into someone who might be parked on the street during the day.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, if there's no other comments, I guess, Steve, a couple things you said stuck in my mind, which is the water runoff, which I'm assuming with the engineer sitting next to you, he can probably do this in his head. Can you give us an idea of the square footage and the amount of, I'm being facetious, Krishid, just so you know, trying to lighten the mood, is I guess what I'd love for staff to come back with, which would be how many properties would be affected to give us kind of an upside for how many folks might actually pursue this change. And then Krishid, I know there's one of the engineering firms is good at this, just what that might actually mean from a likely storm scenario runoff impact, because would love to be flexible for our residents, don't need to hear of a deluge, term used with precision, of complaints when you have street flooding, if you're overwhelming how the as-built environment in any given neighborhood. So I'd appreciate if you came back between the two of you and said, okay, this is about what it would look like. So that's one issue. The other issue would be around the aesthetics. So I heard a couple things there, Steve, in your presentation. Do we want to allow people to have a driveway that goes right up to their front door? Mixed feelings about that, because if they're willing to do it and it's an investment in their home, and then the next buyer comes along, they're clearly going to see that. So it's not like you're going to hide that change to the home. So that's really kind of on that individual homeowner if we allow this, assuming we solve for some of the other aesthetic or water issues. And then I guess just if you could briefly, with some of the concerns you heard from some of the residents with what they brought up, would what your proposed changes, sounds like we would bring a number of properties back into compliance, but would it address, and you have to answer this now, we can get back to them, the specifics of their issues?
You wanted your driveway a little wider than 18, didn't you? Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and then for storage, storage of an RV, there was always sensitivity around RV storage on driveways. Just briefly come up to the microphone. I want your quick feedback so we can get on with.
Before I started the project, I had bought the RV, and you don't realize how much room they take if you try to put stuff in them. But before I did that, I did clarify with Orland that it was okay to park the RV on the trailer. I didn't buy it and then go, can I leave it there? I checked first. They said, yeah, you can have a trailer there. Once I got the trailer, they are bigger than they look when you get them in your driveway. So now I'm so I wrote around the neighborhood trying to see what other people have done to try to make room for this trailer. And like I said, there was multiple widenings, people down the side of the garage. And obviously, it was just done down at the end of my block the year prior, so I thought there was no issue.
Right, no.
I mean, so,
At least you tried to check, but
Well,
people can be fairly creative with their interpretation of our zoning laws.
yeah, well, this was brand new blacktop. This was just done the year prior. I'm like right next to, I'm like, so obviously, I didn't think there would be any issue. So that's when I had the gravel put in. And again, I personally, again, everybody's different. I thought it would aesthetically be a little bit more pleasing to get it tucked away.
Right.
Because my lot is 200 feet wide. I'm just trying to sneak it in next to the garage. So it's not a land issue as far as water runoff. It's more about, I guess,
Aesthetics and impact on the neighbors. All right, so I guess, George, Steve, sounds like there's some more.
Yeah, this is a different, there's a whole bunch of other things we're going to need.
No,
to
that's,
get to that one.
but
So,
I
different-
guess as you're going to bring these amendments forward, there's use cases like this out there.
Yeah.
Right? So, George, the next step seems to be for staff to go off and do some additional work.
We've actually done a pretty extensive study of the Fernway neighborhood already.
Is that the next step, George?
Yeah, so briefly, what we'll do is we'll bring this back to another committee of the whole before we start the text amendment process. Just to answer those questions, it'll probably just be a brief discussion, and then with the board's direction, we'll go into the text amendments.
Any objections?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Katsinas?
Quick thing, I think that where this gentleman lives, your lot is about a half acre of property, isn't it? They're larger lots. They're not the typical Orland 80 by 125, and they're certainly not the E3s that we were just talking about. So you have a half acre lot, so that you can disguise something a little bit better with a bigger lot, right? So just want to make, right. They're one of the few areas that have that big a lot. Thank you.
All right, we have a direction. Ready? Next item, please.
Village of
Thank you.
Orland Park, lead service replacement plan. Cover, please.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawler?
I move to recommend that Public Works pursue replacement of 4 lead service lines with copper from B-box to meter this fiscal year at the village's expense.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Open it up for, Joel, you want to take us through the background, then we'll have board discussion?
Very good.
Go.
Okay. Thank you, Board, Mayor.
Make sure we can hear you, Joel.
Yes, nice and close.
Or you can
All
change,
right.
yeah, you can lift the microphone.
All right, so back in April 24, we did update the board on the lead services for the villages. I thought this brief could also bring up the rest of the new trustees as well and the mayor. Also, for our 2026 Consumer Conference Report, we have to note that we're in violation because I'll talk about that and why we're in violation through this brief. Lastly, the recommendation is presented today. Real quick, obviously lead is very harmful, especially to young children. Flint, Michigan really had a problem with it. So it really became a nationwide concern for all the United States to look at lead service piping. In 2027, Illinois passed the act, and this particular act helps the villages look at the inventory that we have. So that it comes down to creating and developing a comprehensive water service line inventory and a replacement. A lot of the towns and villages are all doing this at this time. The plan also would help us prioritize if we had a huge amount of lead services, where we're going to spend the money, how we're going to do it, and so forth. So this is common through all the villages doing this at this time. So our village, we thought we had a very good number. We really didn't think we had any lead services in the village. But during the meter program, we wanted to double check. It's a good way to do that during the meter program. When we were replacing the meters, we actually had the contractor look and see if they actually had lead in the houses. And during that process, we identified 4 houses with lead out of 22,000. So that's great news. It's not 0 that we thought, but 4 was the number. So there is one little difference between EPA and Illinois EPA. And Illinois EPA believes that the villages are responsible all the way to the houses. Most communities, it's up to the B box. So there's a little bit difference of opinion on that. And then 2027 is the deadline for communities to, if they don't get some of the lead services, it'll be responsible for the village to pay for that anyways. So the clock is ticking on us. And then we have to do reporting from last year, starting last year, going forward, and that's the consumer report. And so it also, the deadline is if a resident sells a house, we have to fix the lead at that time. So it's kind of like a forcing action for the villages to step in and take care of the lead lines. Oops. So just want to update you, since April 2024, we did submit our inventory. We have to sample 60 locations as the mandate. So part of that sampling is those 4 houses. So initially, 3 out of the 4 didn't want to participate even sampling. We convinced 2 of them, but 1 of them is refusing to do the sampling of the water, which created the violation. And so now we're in this situation where we got to write that on our report, which is not good. So we looked at the cost for the 4 service lines, roughly $60K, maybe up to $80. It all depends on kind of where that transition from copper to lead occurs. If it's right near the foundation, it'll be a lot less digging and so forth. So this cost can be reduced. But we're estimating about 10 to 15 per house. We threw a little contingency on there just in case we come across something we don't know in the ground. We did double check grants too. We've been attending all the meetings. For the inventory, there's really nothing out there. Plus, we got our inventory done, right? So we're looking at some grants for anything out there. Coming up with no right now for us. There are a little more disadvantaged communities and so forth. We can't apply. So we kind of had these decisions. We chose back in April, number 1. I'm asking to come back and look at that again. Because the clock is getting closer and closer to 27 anyways, I figured if we can go ahead and get these 4 houses complete, it also helps us reduce our costs from staff time to a contract to help us report in inventories and so forth. So that is really the option I'm asking the board today, if we could proceed to just do it ourselves. Funding is available in our water account this year, so there's no additional budget amendment or anything like that. We can execute this year. We will bid that out, get some contractors in, bring that back to the board for approval.
Joel, could you go back 1 slide?
Yes, sir. Oops.
As we open it up for board comments, I guess a pretty simple set of options here. So, how, Trustee Milani, I'm sorry, Trustee Milani, just how aggressive do we want to be on doing cost recovery here? Go ahead.
Just a quick question. Going back, I know we made this decision in April of 24. Were the residents completely unresponsive to fixing it themselves?
Correct.
They went and said, okay, let's do the testing, but
Yes.
we're not going to pay for this?
Correct. That was part of the discussion with them as well, is like, hey, you're required to fix your lines. They're like, we'll drink their lead water. Right. Okay.
I mean,
But that's unfortunate, because, yeah, it's bad for their health.
And I knew we kind of knew that this could possibly happen, right?
Correct.
It's like, let's try this. If it doesn't work, let's reassess.
Yes.
Here's our reassessment.
Yep.
And discrepancy between the EPA and Illinois, of course, it's whose rules do you follow, right? So it's like we might just have to do the right thing here. So,
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other? Trustee Lawler?
Joel, so you're proposing that we just pay for it and then the 4 houses get new water lines, no cost to them?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, did we reach out, and ask them to do it with a grant maybe from us, like a 50-50, knowing that, law states that they're going to have to do this by 2027 or if they ever sell their house?
Yeah, we did give some options like that, if that was a possibility. They were just unreceptive at the time.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawrence?
I'd like to ask Joel, of the 4 have any indicated that they would not allow the lead to be removed? Are we potentially in a situation where they won't allow us in their house and we can't accomplish what we need to accomplish for the EPA?
The one that remains, the fourth one, I think we need to have maybe a discussion with the village manager or somebody, maybe the mayor too, just to have a conversation with them to explain. They redid their driveway. They were concerned that somehow it might be, torn up to do that and so forth, so.
Oh, okay.
But we believe, because we potholed, or we went down and we verified it was copper at the B box. But the meter saw it in the house. So somewhere between the B box and the house, it changed from copper to lead. And if my staff's guess is a contractor who installed it, got to the foundation, didn't want to do the extra work to punch it through the wall, and then put it into the house. So they left that little portion of lead. So, yeah. So that one, we hope it's of minimal impact for the resident once we have a conversation with them. A little bit, with.
Okay, but if the resident refuses to let us in there to do it?
In 2027, we're supposed to have to do it anyways.
Force them, in other words, by having a police officer go to them or something? I'm just wondering.
I don't know. We haven't got that guidance from IEPA.
One second here, Mike.
We would probably have to go into court in 2027 with an injunction, but that's hopefully a road we don't have to cross.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy?
Can I assume that none of these houses are rented out or that there's no children under? Okay, so they're all
owned.
Just individuals. And the other thing is, can we put a lien on a house? Is that what, if we pay 10 or 15,000, can we put a lien on their?
So maybe we can refer that to the village attorney, but to get a lien, we'd have some type of judicial judgment on it. And in order to get that, we'd probably have to, I don't know, pass an ordinance that's illegal to have lead lines.
We would have to, option number 3, we would have to pass an ordinance requiring that. So it would take additional time, and then the lien would occur. And then you'd only receive the lien at the sale of the home.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Katsinas?
I think Trustee Lawler has a great idea, is trying to do like a cost shared, because it really isn't fair that all the residents have to pay for someone that doesn't want to change their water service. That's also going to increase the value of their home, right? I mean, if they went to sell it, certainly would have to disclose it. I think a nice happy median is to offer that, a 50-50 cost shared, and then if not, go to number 3. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Joel or George, what is it costing us in fines or reporting costs or whatnot with the federal and state authorities?
So currently nothing we just have to report it on that we are in violation. They haven't assigned any fine to it yet. It's just.
Joel, who does our reporting?
Our consumer report, officially our staff, but then we use a consulting firm to help us fill out the forms and so forth like that.
And the sampling we do in-house?
Sampling is in-house, yes. So our staff goes around and picks up the 60 samples throughout the village to do that. So that's cost.
So right now, it doesn't, is it or is it not costing the village penalties or fines from the regulatory agencies for this problem?
No cost yet. We don't know because we haven't heard. They moved the goalposts, for the.
So I guess then an open-ended policy question for the board is, much like the 4 people along Tinley Creek that caused us the considerable expense to kind of re-engineer it because of their just reluctance to work with us, it just philosophically bothers me that everybody else has to chip in for people who don't want to solve an unknown problem. So I guess the question is, if this isn't costing us fines or fees, but we are getting a check mark on our report, I like the idea of exploring other cost recovery methods, which I think is where the combination of where Trustee Katsinas and Trustee Healy were going.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leafblad.
I have a question with regard to what happens after 2027 in terms of any kind of shift of responsibility from the homeowner to the village.
Well, in 2027, as option one, it says that while we're in violation in 2027, then the violation according to IEPA requires that we replace it.
Correct.
So currently, while we're in violation, there's no teeth to it, but the teeth occurs in 2027.
So if I understand correctly then, if we don't pay for it now, we will end up paying for it later. Like, paying to have it done is inevitable if the resident's not going to do it.
Correct. And what we were trying to say is there is staff time, there is that support contractor who's putting the, the report together for us. So there is some cost to the village. And we anticipate that this will get really busy for contractors in 27. So pricing of materials and labor will go up in 27 because all the deadline will induce somewhat of a panic among the, the timeframe.
Mr. Mayor?
I guess it sure feels like the right thing to do overall is to do this now for the reasons you just articulated. It's just going to get more expensive later, and the problem isn't solved despite their reluctance to help themselves. But in good conscience, I just think we need to find a way to do cost recovery here. And so, I mean, are there options?
The board could pass the original motion, but you could amend it requiring somewhat of a hybrid on option number 3, where you pass the language according to 3 and then go forward with the action of doing it. But then we'd have the lien where we could go in that way. So, but that would require an amendment to the original motion.
Yeah, and I guess Trustee Lawrence?
Clarification, so option 2 states that we would be eliminating the cost of reporting sampling and staff time estimated at between $60,000 and $80,000 total. Have we now determined that it's not that much?
That was the question. How much is it cost to do the reporting?
Yeah, that's there's missing a comma there. The 60 to 80 is for the work to actually replace the lead lines. The estimated cost for the annual reporting, sampling, and staff time, there is a cost.
But it's not.
It's not 60 to 80.
Okay,
no.
so it's not comparable to
Right.
what it would cost. Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
I guess, Trustee Lawler?
Yeah, so the other thing I think to remember here is, if the homeowner does it, they may be able to find a cheaper alternative to getting it done. But I think that if we could reach out to the homeowner and say, well, we can give you a grant now to get it done, but, and you can hire someone yourself, but in 2027, this could potentially be a lot more expensive, which, we could let them know they could be on the hook for it. And would that be some sort of an incentive for them to get it done? Could we offer them that? Because you said it's going to get, you're anticipating that it's going to get really busy in 2027 to find a licensed contractor to be able to install copper, which means prices could potentially be much higher.
Yes. Yes, so we can bring that up again. We were kind of having those conversations already. They were declining those, so we can ask again, but.
When you, Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leafblad.
Joel, when you were speaking to them, and it sounds like you've had a lot of conversations trying to convince them that they should do what's safest for themselves, but were they approached with the notion that either they do it, they could accept a grant from the village, or if the village had to do it, there would be a lien placed on their property?
We did not bring up the lien, from my understanding.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Katsinas?
I would like to amend the motion, and I move to recommend that we pass an ordinance that requires residents to the residents in question to participate in replacing their service lines by 2027, or have their water turned off and a lien placed on their home until they comply with the replacement.
It's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion trustee Katsinas just offered?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leafblad?
I would say that if we're going, if I don't think we need to shut off their water if we're gonna, because we have to, if we're gonna do the work, and then we have, I'm agreeing with putting the lien on their house, that, but, and that they would have to comply with our people coming in and doing the repair, but shutting off the water, I think if we're gonna say we're gonna do that, I think we should put a time period on what we're talking about in terms of turning off their water.
Question for the board. I think, let me do a quick consensus. I think we all want this to happen. We all would like to make sure that the rest of us are not funding this, so there's got to be some kind of lien or cost recovery. Is that a fair synopsis? So trustee Katsinas, do we simply, motion to direct staff to redraft? Our motions now are a little conflicted.
Yeah.
So if nobody objects, why don't we table this? But George, you and Joel, you have clear direction what the board wants to do. So my recommendation is we table this. You guys go back and kind of recraft this with the advice of legal so that we've got a solid ordinance so that these people understand it's on you, it's going to eventually happen, and if the village is forced to pay for it, we're going for cost recovery. Is that fair? So
Mr.
then,
Chairman,
trustee Katsinas?
I move to table the Village of Orland Park lead service replacement plan.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to table. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
Moving on to 2025 Sanitary Sewer Manhole Rehabilitation Program, ITB 25-037.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawler?
I move to recommend to the village board to authorize the approval and execution of a contractor agreement between the Village of Orland Park and Aris Inc. of Joliet, Illinois, as the lowest qualified responsive bidder for ITB 25-037, 2025 Sanitary Sewer Manhole Rehabilitation Program for a cost of $368,974 plus a contingency of $36,800 for a total not to exceed contract price of $405,774.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any debate on this?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Cindy. Trustee
And this is
Katsinas.
directed to Joel. How has our past experience been with Aries?
Very good.
Very good?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're the top company in this south.
So you had no
suburbs.
problem with them completing, coming back for corrections?
Yeah, they're very good.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
2025 Sidewalk Replacement Program, Part 2,
Mr.
ITB 25-039.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leafblad.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve and authorize the execution of a contractor agreement between the Village of Orland Park and Strata Construction Company of Addison, Illinois, as the lowest qualified responsive bidder for ITB 25-039, 2025 Sidewalk Replacement Program Part 2 for a cost of $551,679.12 plus a contingency of $50,000 for a total not to exceed contract price of $601,679.12.
Second.
The motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler? Aye. Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
Fiscal year 2025 budget amendment number 2. Finance.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawler.
I move to recommend a village board approving an expenditure increase in the capital improvement fund of $246,671 and an expense increase in the general fund of $471,055.09.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any comments from the trustees?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Katsinas.
I just have a couple of questions for George mainly. On the internship program, although I certainly agree with the spirit, having young people work here, hopefully, or intern here, hopefully one day working here or in another village. But, you know, when you break down the cost, it said the total cost was $172,800 for 12 interns who are going to be working less, who are only allowed to work 19 hours or less a week. Like the math just isn't adding up. And I know you said it could be for 2 months or for 2 years. But if we do the math, there's only 5 months left in this year. So is next year, is it gonna be like 380,000? Because this is a pretty significant hit outside of the budget. You know, that's a concern. And just another quick thing, tuition reimbursement. Was that not in our bargaining agreements? And I don't ever recall us discussing this during the part of the budget process, anything about any tuition reimbursement. I do recall it when we're dealing with the union agreements. So I guess that's a concern about, you know, is that not bargained? And it's just a significant budget adjustment. And, you know, maybe I was trained wrong, but I used to think budget adjustments were for something that was critical. You know, you utilize that for something that was really critical, not for programs that maybe could wait. So those are kind of my questions and thoughts.
So yes, on the tuition reimbursement, it not only is it in our employee handbook, but it is in certain CBAs, the labor agreements.
Right.
At some point,
Make sure you're close to the microphone.
at some point, the board, or it was eliminated from budgets. So although it is a program that is on the books, the village has taken the stance that since it is not budgeted, it's something that we will not provide. So that's to, go ahead.
When was the last time it was presented to the board? Like I don't remember seeing it in the budget process. So did it stop before it got to the trustees? And if so, like how long ago did they give tuition reimbursements? Like how long has it been since we haven't done it?
Yeah.
I don't ever remember seeing it.
Yeah, so I know when I started in 2019, that was the policy already, that it was removed from the budget. So that's what we were tell our employees, that since it's not budgeted, I understand that it's in but it's not budgeted.
Okay, but it was removed before it got to the trustees. Like we didn't say remove the tuition. Like I don't remember ever seeing it to even vote on to remove it. I mean, I had 2 kids in college, so it was a pretty sensitive topic to me.
Sure, yeah.
You know, I mean, I remembered it, but I don't ever remember, you know, saying to, you know, like it never hit the board to have this discussion.
Yeah, we'll definitely try to dig up, you know, the last time this was.
Well, I mean, I just want to know, the cost is $20,000, but what groups of employees would be partaking in it? Because it doesn't.
All full-time employees, all benefit eligible employees.
But what about the bargaining agreements we have that already have tuition reimbursement?
Correct. We have tuition reimbursement language in the CBAs.
Right.
But we have not paid any of those out.
So the ones that are in our bargaining agreement, we have not paid those out?
Correct.
Okay. Those have to be paid by contractual, certainly, with the unions.
So, and it's also in our employee manual, but the decision was at the time that since we are not budgeting it, we are not going to pay out tuition reimbursements.
Okay. And you think that the most it would be for 1 year would be 20,000?
For the remainder of this year is what we're estimating is 20,000 because it'll go back to the beginning of 2024. And that 20,000 actually has a little bit of extra in there just in case we do get an employee or two that still want to seek the tuition reimbursement. It's not, you know, it's $400 per credit hour. Employees are working full-time, so there's not a lot of credit hours that they could take in one semester. And we're in the summer already, so really all we're looking at is we know what we have to pay for the past. Since '24, it's really how much more can we possibly get in requests between now and the end of the year.
We think of it's contractual agreement with the union that should come first, like their wages, so.
Yeah.
So that's, I understand that. But what, with the internship
The
program?
internship, it's relatively new, and we have not hired anybody yet. We're going through the recruitment process, and we're getting some really great young candidates here throughout all of our departments. So the 157 is it's still kind of a guesstimate about how many hours an intern can provide us. So we're gonna have a much better idea once we hire them and we see what type of interest we have, whether we're getting people that are interested in short-term, long-term, but right now it's still just a guesstimate.
Just concerned next year it's gonna be like 380,000. I mean, that's it.
Sure, it could potentially, but when we go through the budget process, since we're gonna have people hired, we'll have a better idea at that point.
Okay, thank you, George.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Malani?
Just a couple things I wanted to point out. I remember back when we used to use capital resources to pay for operational expenses, and things were a bit of a mess, and I thought we kind of eliminated that approach. But now we're looking to use capital resources to pay for an operational expense such as a tree pruning program again. And I know it's a temporary fix, and it will probably end up in our, operational expense next year, but there could be other places we could use that $400,000 besides moving it into the operational budget. So I just guess, one, I don't agree with that. And then just a question on the internship. When we discussed the program, I had asked if there was going to be a selection process. Did you actually define a process, or are we just interviewing candidates? How are these candidates being
The
evaluated?
selection process is not unlike what we have for our regular employees.
Okay.
So human resources is obviously very involved in this process. There's the phase one, which is HR. They go through it, and then they look for folks that actually meet the minimum requirements, and then they provide those to the departments. The departments look further, and then they have communication with HR, and then based on that, they'll start with phone interviews, phone screenings, and then in-person interviews.
Okay, so the department leaders are all involved as part of the
Oh,
process?
absolutely. They're the ones that are getting ultimately they're getting the applications, and they're working closely with HR.
Okay, and who will make the final decision?
It'll be a combination of HR and the department.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, I just, there's too many things in this, budget amendment for me that are kind of overlapping that, just let people, I'm probably going to vote no on this because I do completely still disagree with the outreach coordinator. I just don't think that's needed. And then also the capital being moved into operational is just something I can't support, so.
If I could just, something on that. So the capital budget, and in a future meeting, the finance director, Chris, is going to do a budget primer because fund accounting in the municipal sense is, sometimes it gets confusing, but there is no dedicated revenue source for capital. So there is no capital improvement tax. Everything comes out of the general fund, home rule sales tax, and gets transferred, and an amount gets transferred. And really the issue always becomes, do we have enough money to transfer into the capital? So since the jumbotrons were removed, the total price was $700,000. We had initially planned to transfer from general fund into the capital. That just won't happen now. That transfer won't happen. So there is no dedicated revenue source for that, and all we're doing is just keeping it in the general fund.
But we budget and put it into that capital fund.
Right, and that's why we're doing this budget amendment right now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy?
You know, Mr. Mayor, I believe in personal responsibility, and this tree pruning program, it just hits me wrong on a number of things. I think that we're a lot of self-made people from the south side of Chicago migrated here, and we're hardworking people with a lot of pride in our own houses and that. And some of us are amateur horticulturists or gardeners, and sure, we'll make a mistake with a tree or whatever, and the thriving of trees, but nobody wants to do it on purpose, but it's a learning process for everybody. So having the village take over some of these responsibilities is, I think is wrong. The tree pruning thing is a permanent, to me, I look at it as a permanent tax on our village. I don't need the tree pruning in my house, yet I've got to pay for I don't know what the number was, 140 people that are out of compliance. And if they're out of compliance, I don't know why we don't find them and get them to, so what if it takes time to get through it? Find them, and if they're out of compliance, let's go. Why are they being given a break on not complying? I think that this is a permanent tax that will go on forever. You're never going to be able to repeal this effort and say, oh, you know what, people, we're going to have you go back and do it on yourself. So you're going to be charging every widow, divorcee, people who own their own houses and are having trouble keeping up with the ever-rising taxes. And as we see here, we're spending more on tuition, spending more on employees, spending more on interns. Little bit by bit, we just, it seems like people, all of a sudden we just like raising taxes, raising costs, raising taxes, getting government more involved. I think that the idea that people are going to get their eyes poked out by these branches is hilarious. It's not, that never happens. And I think you just have to get the personal responsibility and let people take the pride in their ownership. And I just cannot see doing this. You'll never get it retracted. And it's going to be a permanent tax on all the elderly, everybody trying to struggle with a house payment, and just these taxes keep inching up. We'd like to hold the line on taxes, but we see more and more money being spent for all these things. I'm just worried about the Illinois' ever-increasing tax bills. And I like to say we're not part of that, but maybe we are.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Leafblad?
who planted the trees in the parkways?
That would have been the village at some point, or the developer, but it would be under the village's authority.
So the village planted the trees in the parkway?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, that's all I.
Any other comments or questions? My comments are pretty straightforward. George, I look forward to that briefing so we can clear up once for all the notion that we're using capital resources for operating expenses. Let's just get that clarified under the way we do budgeting and accounting. And then regarding taxes, that's part of the ongoing discussion of how much service do we want to offer to the residents of Orland Park? What are the net benefits to the community? And then how much are we going to run the program for? So with that, there's a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Leafblat?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
No.
Trustee Katsinas?
No.
Trustee Malani?
Nope.
Mayor Dodge?
Aye.
Motion passes. An ordinance amending Titles 1 and 2 of the Orland Park Village Code regarding boards, commissions, and committees.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawler?
I move to recommend the village board to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Titles 1 and 2 of the Orland Park Village Code regarding boards, commissions, and committees.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say that as someone who served on a couple of commissions in the village of Orland Park for a long time, for 4 years, I felt that we did not really have a say in what was going on. A lot of times we heard about things that didn't really pertain to some of the things that we needed to worry about as citizens. I think by breaking up and revamping our committees is important, because I think in our community, we have a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge on different topics. And it's, in my opinion, free consulting, and we should listen to them and see what they have to offer. I also think it's important to listen to residents, and not just one group of residents. We need to listen to a lot of residents and different opinions, and be able to sit in a committee meeting and have dialogue, on what they want to see happen in the community and what they think we should be doing in the community. And as someone who sat on a commission, I didn't feel that that's how they were being run. I was also always bothered by the fact of sitting on a committee that when we did have a discussion on a particular point of view or an idea, we never had a chance to talk to a trustee or a village board member. So it was really up to the appointed person of the commission to relay it to the board. And in my opinion, I feel like a lot of things that were discussed never made it to the board. So I think it's important that we look at how our committees are run and revise them. And that's why this amendment is on the agenda tonight.
So any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Malani.
Just really quick, and for the people that are listening and for all the new, can someone explain the difference between a committee, a commission, and an advisory board for all of us? What are the key differences between the three?
I suspect it's something like the difference between a city and a village in Illinois. There's probably, and I don't know if there is a legal difference. Probably more of a, Mike, what do you think?
Well, police and fire usually is a commission. It's a different type under the state statute or an act. There's also a commission form of government. Payless Park is a commission form of government. So it's more by charter. Boards are usually to assist the day-to-day operations of the village. I hope that answers.
For example, we had our Veterans Commission, we had our Technology Commission, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's kind of terminology. I mean, it's
go to the next
potato, but like most commissions are police and fire commissions, things that are created by statute.
okay. So most of them are eventually just advisory boards for that point. So, for example, our Veterans Commission, they're very successful, right? They've raised thousands upon thousands of dollars for veterans and the organizations that we support. Is that type of thing going to continue for the new Veterans Advisory Board, or are they just going to be there to advise moving forward? It'd be interesting to see some of the roles of these new boards.
Mike, Trustee Malani. Sorry, Trustee
Go ahead,
Leapen.
floor, please.
Go ahead. The question was, will we still have the work of the Veterans Advisory Board doing what it's been doing currently?
So as proposed, it will actually be the appointed members of these boards that will create their own bylaws and really kind of formulate the committee with guidelines from the board. Obviously the AI and Information Technology Advisory Board is not going to talk about grounds. So they kind of have their general ideas, and we're going to use those resources to actually develop their scope, their mission, their bylaws. So that's what it is.
Right, and it also looks like, for example, the Rec Advisory Board, which is also very successful, I guess, based on popular opinion. But a lot of things go through there. They review a lot of information. They bring us very valuable feedback, right? And looks like we're going to reduce them into some smaller subsets, like smaller committees now. So we're going to have more people on smaller committees that might actually have less work to do, because originally the Rec Advisory Board was much bigger and we read a lot of work through them, right? So it's like I would hate to see a bunch of people on advisory boards that might not have enough work to do to keep them occupied or be busy. I mean, I've been on 2 of them, and I know the types of things that go through it. There could be times where there's nothing to talk about. You have a 20-minute meeting, next thing you know, you're there for 2 hours, right? So, I mean, I just want to make sure that we're, putting people in positions that are going to be productive, maintain the productivity, because I would hate to come back and try and staff 13 different committees and boards. It just seems like a lot. So, just my thoughts, sir.
Any
Mr.
other
Mayor?
Trustee Lawler?
Give you an example.
Trustee Lawler, hang on. Did any of the trustees want to be recognized? John's spoken once already. No. Okay. Sorry, go ahead, John.
Just to give you an example, a couple weeks ago, we were at the Southwest Conference municipal new elected officials meeting, and the mayor of Naperville spoke, and he talked about how they have 30 different advisory boards that they staff and they listen to and use for free, advice and consulting. And, I did hear differing opinions. A smaller village said we just felt like they weren't, that productive, so they eliminated some of them. But to speak to Parks and Rec, as someone who sat there for 4 years and pretty much went to every meeting, and I'm going to break this up. So under Parks and Rec, we had parts of it talked about recreation programs going on. Other parts, we talked about sports fields, and then they had arts grouped into that. And so we had originally, I think there was 12 members on that board. And so sometimes these meetings, they did. They went for 3 hours because we would talk about some arts, and the people who were there for the sports reasons didn't really care to hear about the arts. And the people that were on the arts didn't care about what was going on in the sports. And so, and then you got into, some different things like grounds. And there are some areas where I think that were neglected. So, I'm pushing to break this into 4 different subgroups because I think they are 4 very large areas that need to be concentrated individually. And, that's kind of, why I feel like we should break Parks and Rec. It's just, in my opinion, it's too big and encompasses way too many things. And, I think it's smaller, more workable committees would be a benefit.
Any other comments? The intent is to have smaller committees, more focused, and then opposed to those committees, as Trustee Lawler said, what are their ideas to make this better? What are their ideas to expand outreach to our residents and then bring back more ideas for the board? So that's the intent. Let's see how it goes. Hence, we've brought this motion forward. So we will, in the near future, be addressing the other required by law. I guess these would technically be commissions, like the 911 Commission, the Plan Commission, and the Police and Pension Fire Board. So we're not going to deal with those tonight. This is just about the advisory committees, to clear up the point.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Leafblad.
where can an Orland Park resident go if they want to express an interest in being on one of these committees or participating on one of these advisory boards?
It's a great question, and pending tonight, if this vote is successful, we will have a draft application form for people to do that. We'll get it out on the website and we'll put it out on social media, and hoping, quite frankly, that we get a deluge of people interested in stepping up for the village.
So this is open to like all the residents, anybody who feels that they have something to contribute or some experience, that they want to contribute and want to volunteer.
Yes, and what we've done in this ordinance is to, one, expand the number of advisory boards. We've also changed the ordinance so that if somebody, previously it was only for residents and owners of businesses. There's a number of people who work in Orland Park that would like to participate. So we're opening it up to that as well. Obviously, we don't want these commissions or these advisory groups to be dominated by folks who don't live in Orland, so we'll keep an eye on that one. But I certainly am open-minded when it comes to the feedback. So that's the idea. Any other questions or comments? There's a motion and a second on the floor. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence.
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Mayor Dyer.
Aye.
Neighborhood mediation program.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Leaflet.
I move to recommend the village board to direct staff to initiate a free mediation pilot program with the Center for Conflict Resolution.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas?
I always cringe when I hear free. Nothing's ever free, right? It's costing the village between $250 to $300 per mediation. I understand the rationale, but again, to our point about the lead pipes, I don't think we, meaning the rest of us, should be participating in that. When you go to court, you know, many times if there's things that are required, that's paid out of pocket. You know, in professional organizations, if you bring a claim against another one in your profession, you're paying that, not the professional organization. And typically you split the cost, and the winner, you know, of the case or of the hearing gets what the other person put in, so they're made whole. I'd like to see more of a cost to the people wanting to mediate. I don't think the village should have to pay for that. And if somebody isn't willing to pay the cost, you have to ask how willing are they to mediate. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Leaflet.
I see that there's a free pilot program of 4 to 5 sessions. If we find, so that's free to the village. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So if we find after those 4 to 5 sessions that this mediation pilot program is not what we expected it to be and not worth the expense, are we able to then terminate it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, real quick, can I ask a question for George? George, where is this program? What is the necessity for this? I feel like I have an idea of a recent issue that I was brought aware of,
Right.
And why we would need this.
Well, if I could, Jim Culata has done a lot of research on this, and he's just going to do a real quick presentation, and then I'll answer the question as well.
Sure. So this is a pilot program. It is an opportunity for the village to see if this type of a service would be a good fit for us. It also allows the Center for Conflict Resolution to see if they want to expand the service to Orland Park. So it is used fairly broadly, including by the Northwest Municipal Conference. So what's involved is there's professionals that are trained by the Center for Conflict Resolution, and before they take on a new community, what they're offering is a free, 4 free sessions, okay? So it could be 4 different conflicts that the village would recommend, and obviously this is 2 parties have to be willing to engage in this service. But what they would do is they would have 1 session, it could go up to 4 hours with a trained mediator, an impartial individual. And if the 2 parties are willing to have even a written agreement, the mediator would craft that. It wouldn't be a legally binding agreement. However, it sets a framework for hopefully cooperation and resolution to a conflict between 2 neighbors. If the board and the Center for Conflict Resolution wishes to proceed, then when we would enter into an agreement, and then going forward, there would be some sort of a per conflict fee. So typically we're looking at between $250 and $300 per conflict. So at this point, all staff is requesting is there a desire for us to participate in this free pilot program of 4 to 5 sessions?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leaflet.
I do have a question with regard to that. To Trustee Katsina's point, if this is successful, this could save residents a lot in legal fees and other things if they would go to the mediation instead. Is there any kind of option, let's say we do the pilot program and it's very, very successful. I have 2 questions. One, is there a time limit on how long the pilot program is open? You know, because we don't know when we'll have 4 to 5 conflicts to send to them.
There is not a time limit.
Okay, and then my second question would be, if it is successful, could we have the parties share the cost of it? For example, if they are willing, in the future, if we were to adopt this program, if they are willing to participate in the mediation, then they would split the cost, because it's a savings to them anyway. Is that an option?
So any agreement that we have with the Center for Conflict Resolution would speak to the fee, and then I would imagine this topic could be addressed with them. Perhaps it's something that the village could facilitate, meaning the two parties would pay the village and the village could pay the Center for Conflict Resolution. Like, that may be an option. That isn't a scenario that we've requested for them to consider, but we certainly could.
Oh, so like, for example, the contract, our contract would be with them. So, and then but we could maybe have the policy that the residents would pay the village, and that money would then be paid to the.
We could consider that approach, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Healy?
I'm just curious if there's are these, a couple questions, are these FOIable, the recorded sessions or a report? They're not FOIable because they're not part of the
Correct. This is a process. The only role the village would have in this process is referring parties to the Center for Conflict Resolution. At that point, we're done. There's no other involvement. There's no documentation. There's no recordings. The village is not privy to anything that comes out of that mediation.
But we're paying $250 to $300. Do we get any type of report back that Joe X and Bill Y?
I think that it would be very minimal communication, meaning that, like, yes, we had a session, and yes, we engaged, we created an agreement, for the parties, but it's at that very base level.
Okay, well, that's good.
And if I could also add that there was, and it's still an ongoing neighbor dispute. Police, code enforcement, the village, we get involved in these neighbor disputes. And really the only tool that the village has right now is, it's a hammer, right? Someone's gonna get a ticket, or someone's in violation, and then we have to take them to court. And we want to try to avoid all of that. The 250 or 300 gets eaten up very, very quickly through staff time if we are if we're dealing with something on an ongoing basis. We are currently dealing with something that is, a lot of staff time. We've totally surpassed the 250 to 300. This would be a prime example where, if the neighbors could sit down, but instead the village gets put in the middle where I want you to fine them this, I want to ticket this, and it doesn't serve anybody's purpose. In other municipalities, this has been very successful. This is just another avenue to try to get these neighbor resolutions, under wraps.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Trustee Katsinas?
Just a couple of quick questions, George. Did they approach us or did you approach them?
Yeah, we were looking for what have other municipalities done to be successful in these neighborhoods. And we found that the Northwest Municipal Conference has helped facilitate this program for a number of municipalities. So it was us doing the research.
So on your estimate, how many residents per year will this program help?
It's difficult to say right now because it's still voluntary, right? It's two willing parties. It's difficult to say.
Okay. And then what other communities are using this service? Have you spoken with them?
Yes.
Yeah, so I have spoken with two, I believe. I mean, the Northwest Municipal Conference is probably a dozen or more communities that use it. I know there's been similar programs like in Skokie, and I also spoke with the communities escaping me right at this moment.
But you overall got positive feedback from using them?
Yes, that they had a positive approach was taken, yes.
Okay. And just to be clear, this is a pilot program with 4 free sessions, and that does not bind us into further sessions by
That's correct.
Doing the free thing, no?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawrence?
I'm wondering about if there's a conflict between neighbors, let's say, and it's an issue of a code violation. Can neighbors decide I'm not going to rat on you, and so you don't have to get a code violation. If there's a code violation, there's a code violation. If somehow or other we find out about it, we need to address it. We
Yeah,
can't not address something that's brought to our attention. Is that correct?
That's correct. Code violations, if someone brings it to attention, we're going to address it. A lot of these times, it's not that black and white. Where this kind of really would work is they're trying to use code to battle with their neighbors. And we will always, in the one case that's going on right now, we will, every claim of a code violation, we will review. And, but that's not the case, like in this situation. It really is just two neighbors that don't like each other. And so I don't know if this is gonna, if they'll be willing to do it, but a lot of times facilitated communication between people can resolve a lot of conflict, because a lot of times we build up in our heads, if we're not communicating, we're building up a problem that may or may not exist.
The community I spoke with was Northbrook.
Any other comments or questions? So I personally like the idea. I think the use cases are one, as George just alluded to, people are trying to use the village to settle their disputes use the village as the forcing function to settle disputes. This could theoretically save us money. And to the broad comments, George, that the board has made, let's bring this back in X number of months after a few tries to see if it's worth it. I think the open question, I think people see the value potentially. Does it work? So
Will do.
There's a motion and a second.
Yes, okay. Trustee Leaflet? Aye. Trustee Lawrence? Aye. Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawler?
oh, sorry, you got to read it.
Oh, yeah.
Adoption of two memorandum of understandings between the village and AFSCME Local 368 regarding uniforms and employee-facing dash cameras.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawler.
I move to recommend to the village board to adopt a memorandum of understanding regarding uniforms between the village of Orland Park and AFSCME Local 368. And I move to recommend to the village board to adopt a memorandum of understanding regarding employee-facing dash cameras between the village of Orland Park and AFSCME Local 368.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas?
if I'm remembering correctly, George, you did the collective bargaining between AFSCME and the village, correct?
That's correct. Well, I was part of a broader team, yeah.
It seems to me these items should be done during collective bargaining and shouldn't, because at what point are we going to open up all of our other contracts with all of our other employee unions? I think we're setting a poor example going forward. I think it could be used against us. I think in your writing you said that their current agreement expires April 30th, 2026. Okay, that is 9 months away. It's my feeling, and this isn't any reflection on Public Works, but it's my feeling if we have an agreement, both sides should stick to it. If they want to change, you should do so at bargaining. Because if we're giving up, what are we getting? Because it's a give and take. Right now, we're just arbitrarily giving up something with 9 months left in the agreement. Why have agreements if we're willing to change them?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's always a give and take. And what we're looking for is always, whenever we're doing agreements, we're looking for win-wins. What we know right now at a staffing level is there were morale issues in our organization. We know that through our previous Q12 surveys. So what we're doing now is we have really stepped up our engagement with our workforce, because ultimately we don't manufacture anything. We don't produce widgets. We are a service provider, and in order to provide excellent services, what the residents expect, we have to have an engaged workforce. And through our discussions with AFSCME, these two areas are where they feel that there needs to be a greater level of engagement. So if you look at the uniform clothing, they're not disagreeing with safety, they're not disagreeing. It's really each division has their unique needs, and what we're going to do is we're going to enhance communication within those divisions and our management to come up with a uniform policy that actually meets all the needs. Villages, the employees, safety, federal, all of that. So it's really, all we're doing is formalizing a communication channel. And then on the dash cams, it's the AVL system has been very successful for the village. You know, we've during the winter, we put in our snow tracker program. It allows residents to see how many times the plow has come down their street. And then we also have the cameras. We have an outside-facing camera and an inside-facing camera. Inside-facing camera goes to a level of trust. And our employees are trusted with a lot of responsibility, and we acknowledge that. So those are the two things. Now, we've done MOUs before. It's not unprecedented. We do them mid-contract periodically.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe both of these items we've discussed in the past during bargaining.
Yes.
Both of these items have come up and we bargained them, but now I guess you're saying as a gesture of goodwill, basically, you know.
It's more than that. It's really we need to increase our level of engagement with our employees. We have within certain departments, well, we know through our Gallup Q12s that we have low engagement, and we're not going to be able to provide great customer service without enhancing that. And these are the efforts that we're taking to do that.
I think some of it too may be personal relationships in any job, right?
Sure.
To increase those personal relationships.
Exactly.
But, you know, sometimes it's not always giving somebody what they wanted that they didn't get in the first place and pouting and then getting, it's like kids, right? So I don't agree with making changes when these issues have clearly been bargained. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, sometimes when I've negotiated collective bargaining agreements, MOUs prevent potential grievances. I'm not saying a grievance necessary for the union uniforms, but for dash cameras, there's a privacy issue. So in many cases, then that will result in is a potential grievance, which there's a cost expense. So that's another reason, not just goodwill. It's to prevent potential grievance, which is litigation.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy? Trustee Healy?
I get it. You know, you contribute to the campaign, and 4 of the people up here accepted money from labor. Yeah, we owe them something. I mean, come on, we got to get them. We got to, you know, they got to get something for that. I just find it objectionable. Thank you.
Trustee Milani?
So this MOU would supersede our current contract and it would take effect immediately then, right?
Well, it doesn't supersede the contract. It supplements the contract.
Supplements. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, but it would take effect immediately?
Yes.
Okay, if I remember back, you know, it's just kind of confusing. If we'd deactivate certain driver-facing cameras, but not all of them, right?
No, these would be all.
So every driver-facing camera in the
Correct.
organization will be turned off?
Correct.
Okay, so if I remember correctly, some of these cameras have helped us address issues, and I believe also kept us out of a liability issue, correct?
Not sure the liability issue.
I thought there was something where we actually, Joe might remember, but I thought there was something that we could have had potential liability, but the camera helped us resolve the issue.
Sorry, I don't remember.
That's okay. It was a while ago. So, and George, I remember you were also an advocate for these cameras and getting them into place?
Yes.
And also the uniform policy, so we could have well, uniformity,
Yeah.
right? You know, and I think we also went out of our way to give a uniform to a certain individual that exceeded the safety standards so he could do a particular job. I believe it was electrical work of some sort.
So, yeah, so we're still gonna maintain all of the safety requirements. It's really just about having those discussions with them.
Right, so you being an advocate for both of these things, you're comfortable with saying, let's not worry about it anymore?
Oh, we're definitely not saying, don't worry about it. Nothing's changing. All the safety requirements have to be met. We're engaging those employees in the selection of those uniforms, but ultimately the decisions are still the department director's decisions.
But you're okay with turning off the driver-facing cameras?
Yeah, that's, absolutely, because really what we need is, and what we've found is the external is the one that's really saving us on potential claims. We saw one of our bus drivers was in an accident, and the external demonstrated that the other driver was at fault, and that's what we're looking for.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? My comments are, I like this idea. It's an active trust to our workforce, and I'll choose to ignore the snarky accusation just made by one of the trustees. Call the roll.
Trustee Lawler.
Aye.
Trustee Leafblad.
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
No.
Trustee Katsinas.
No.
Trustee Malani.
No.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
Passes. Ordinance, Village Code Amendment, expenses and reimbursements for village officers.
George, you want to provide a brief background on this?
Yep, there is an act, I forget the name of it.
It's the Local Government Travel Expense Act. We could have Mr. Stillman explain it if we need to, but go ahead, George.
Well, it's an act that was passed in 2017. You can have reimbursement, but you have to have a policy that's in place, an ordinance that's in place. Many municipalities and counties do. I know you have a policy in place within the village for the employees, best practices to pass this in totality for the whole village in order for you to reimburse. So that's my recommendation.
So this ordinance is specific to elected officials, just like Mike said. We have a travel and training policy in place for all staff. This one is specific to trustees, and like Mike said, it's in compliance with the state act. All we're doing is just putting forth our parameters and how we're going to process this stuff.
Should also help with the auditors. They'll like it.
Yep.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Malani?
Just a question, because I haven't been reimbursed a dime in over 6 years and don't plan on it, but is there a certain problem we're trying to solve, or is this just putting guardrails around expenses moving forward?
It's mostly about guardrails moving forward.
Right, because I don't think we had any patterns of misuse or anything like that, I mean, and we have accounts payable, so we can see who's getting paid what as far as expenses go when reimbursements occur. So I was just kind of curious, because I also did look on a couple other villages, like I went and spot checked Carroll Stream, Tinley Park, and they didn't have an ordinance like this. And I did see that we do have the vehicle expenses that we do reimburse those currently, but were we not? I mean, I believe we were reimbursing certain expenses in the past, right?
That's correct.
So this is just really to clean up the ordinances, though. Okay. I think the public will probably be watching. This is something new for them, so I'm sure they'll be taking a look at it. So thank you for the explanation.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leafblad?
So my understanding is there was nothing in place before, absolutely no guidelines, is that correct?
So the only guideline that is in the village code right now is on vehicle reimbursement. So this goes beyond that. This is all travel training for elected officials.
So it defines exactly what should be reimbursed, what should not be reimbursed.
Correct.
And the documentation that is required to be presented for reimbursement.
That's correct. So anything that does get completed document-wise goes on the bills list, and it becomes just part of the public approval process that the board does.
And so it's more trackable.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy?
would this cover my mileage from home tonight? Would it cover going to advisory board meetings, or would it cover for, I just wonder where's the distinction between, engaged in authorized official village business? I mean, I'm just curious.
Sure. Mike, because right now the board does not submit any requests for mileage to and from village board meetings.
Mr. Mayor?
Wait, hang on, there's an open question. Trustee Lawler?
Typically, that is a reimbursable cost as long as the policy, whatever the board decides is the policy, then and the rate, that's what should be followed. So if in the board's discretion, you did not want village business to be within the village, it's got to be outside, you can write that. But if not, if it's a general sense, it's for everything.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawler?
This would be for outside of normal operating business. So obviously, coming to a board meeting is part of our everyday, distinction in what we're supposed to do in our roles. But on occasion, if we're going to a conference or meeting with a potential project we want to bring to Orland Park, and we have to travel to see that, then this would be an expense that would be, covered.
Yeah. So that's the intent. The intent is really not to change anything that's happening right now that the board's doing. It's really just, as Trustee Milani said, is just putting in formal guardrails.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Katsinas?
Yeah, there is a real concern because of a lot of neighboring neighboring community, let's say, in the Southland, there was a lot of abuse.
Right.
So my concern with this is like Trustee Milani, we've done things on our own dime because we're in public service. That's how I feel. And I am concerned, where is the cap on it? I think, not that I'm accusing anybody on this board of ever doing anything, but I think for the public, there should be some sort of dollar amount that's a cap, and then everything has to be voted on publicly, individually, not buried in 25 pages of accounts payable. So I would like more safeguards on it, and more transparency to the public in light of how people can abuse it.
Yep. So the cap is always the budget, and we do a very detailed line item budget. So under the official section, obviously can't exceed that. And up until recently, reimbursements did not go to the board, personal reimbursements. So they were run through payroll. So the board did not approve personal reimbursements previously. When we changed that's one of the benefits of our new Tyler financials. We put into the Tyler financials that it has to go through the regular accounts payable process to get approved. So now all of that is transparent.
So, Mr. Mayor?
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. And George, could you please give a 10-year history of reimbursements for elected officials? Just in the past 10 years, what are we talking? Trustees, mayors, just to see what is the dollar figure there? I'd be curious.
Yep, we'll get that. I know, I do know in 1 year, I think we hit 4,000, but we will have finance pull a 10-year history.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leaflet?
So if I am understanding correctly, in the past, reimbursements were conducted, but they went through payroll, they were never voted on by the board, and there was no ordinance limiting or guiding what reimbursements were appropriate and what weren't.
That's correct.
And so this ordinance will not only set out exactly what expenses are reimbursable and what are not reimbursable, but it will also require a vote by the board before such reimbursements take place.
Yeah, the vote, right now, just for the sake of processes, the vote would be as part of the accounts payable listing. It would be a line item on that. I mean, that's a system that we have in place right now, checks and balances that we have in place.
Thank you.
I thought we made a motion. All right. Any other comments or questions? We need a motion on this.
Mr. Mayor, I move to recommend to the village board to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Title I, Chapter 8 of the Orland Park Village Code regarding expenses and reimbursements for village officers.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any additional comments from the board? Before we call the roll, sorry, Trustee
I was
Lawler, do you have a
going to
comment?
say, I'm not opposed to not trying to hide anything for transparency if we ever do. Could we pull that out of the accounts payable and just put it as a separate line item?
It's the board's prerogative on that. I mean, just from an operational standpoint, it'll add an extra step to it. But the nice thing about this is that now with our Tyler and our virtual checkbook, all of that is searchable easily.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas?
again, Trustee Lawler has a good idea. I think that should be pulled out for transparency.
Any other comments?
Yes, one other thing, and I understand there's other taxing government bodies that do that pull any expenses by an elected official. It's a separate line item you vote on.
If there's no other comments, I like this idea. I'm told that this has been a governing ordinance like this has been required in state law since 2017, so we'll put it in place tonight. I think, George, the will of the board is that going forward, you and staff will break out any of these reimbursements so it's plain as day for everybody to see. Is that clear?
Clear.
Okay. There's a motion and a second.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, do we have to add that to the motion?
George, do you prefer that in the motion?
I think when we go to the Board of Trustees.
You'll bring it back with that added, correct?
Yes.
We need to modify this motion, clear the direction from the board. Okay. Will that suffice?
Yes, thank you.
There's a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Lawler? Aye. Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
No.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge?
Aye.
Passes. Astound high-speed fiber installation presentation.
Before we jump into this, how important do we need to do this tonight? Because we've got another couple of meaty items we need to get through.
If we can just do it briefly, because they have started their program. This really, all we want to do is get that information out there. So Jim will we'll fly through this, but this is just one of the things that we're going to do.
Strictly informational, correct?
Correct.
Unless there's questions. Go.
So as many of you may know, this is a new service being provided within our community. It is under the authority of the state of Illinois, in which Astound is installing fiber. There is no obligation for village businesses or residents to use this service. However, the service does have the right to install within utility easements and public right-of-ways. So as you can see in this map, Astound has created a schedule to install. They are currently in the gold section, which is on the east side of town. They anticipate completing both the gold and the purple, which is kind of the north section above the gold. They anticipate completing installations this year, and then the other 3 sections would be completed in 2026. They have done some communications, and you can see there's a sequence of events here, so that you should be receiving door hangers and notices on signs throughout the community. Then a utility company or utility locations will occur. Okay, so you may see flags or markings in your backyards or side yards, which is where most of this is occurring. So there's no construction within private property. Okay, it's only within these easements. It's going to be mostly underground work. However, there will be the installation of a pedestal, which you can see on the bottom right there is a green little box that will be on some properties, but not all. And then what they'll do is they'll come in and pull the fiber and, through the conduit that they installed, and then they will restore any areas that were disturbed. Astound has a couple different ways to make people aware and to share concerns. So there's an email, a phone number, and they also have a website dedicated to Orland Park. The village has also created a new web page in which multiple fiber projects are going to be detailed. So it's orlandpark.org fiber, where the Astound project, there's also one by AT&T and a third fiber company that is currently in place. So these are the best resources to get information.
Any comments or questions? Just, I would ask that we spot check that when they're going into areas, the door hangers are actually happening. Those could be hit or miss in terms of residents being notified, and make sure that our comm staff does as much as we can to make sure people understand what this program is. So it's just, on something like this, when it comes through, let's just make sure we're over communicating.
Will do.
Thank you.
Next item.
Therapy dog program continuation. Motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawrence?
I move to continue the Orland Park Police Department's therapy dog program.
Is there a second?
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Let's have this conversation so we can kind of touch base on a couple of things, get clarified the intention of the program and what we're doing. George?
That's right. Mr. Mayor, we've had a very successful program since August, since the retirement of the dog handler, and then subsequently, recently, as the resignation from a part-time position. We are seeking guidance to whether to continue this very successful program, and then Chief can kind of go into what we're recommending here.
So a little history on the therapy dog program. So in August of 21, we established a therapy dog program. It was something new in the suburban police departments. It was out there, but not so much. So we didn't know what we were going to do with our thoughts of having a dog, kind of like a fire department, having it at the station, having everybody take care of it. And we determined that it was going to be assigned to a civilian position. The main purpose was that we wanted to provide emotional support for members of the department and people that were in a crisis. We started doing research on where we can get a therapy dog. We found a therapy dog at Paws and Stripes in Brevard County. We sent the civilian employee down there for training, and they brought Leo back to Orland Park. In August of 2024, the handler retired from his civilian position with the police department to take on a full-time position as a police officer in a neighboring department. Which kind of put us in a bind. We didn't know what we were going to do with Leo. We had some discussions, and the civilian decided, and the village, to allow him to be a part-time police officer with Orland Park and still be the therapy dog handler. In March of 2025, the village board approved an agreement for the handler to provide him a monthly stipend for the care of Leo. Now, as part of the requirements for the part-time officer, they were required to work 6 minimum shifts per month. Once we learned that that wasn't being fulfilled, we requested that he fulfill the minimum shift obligation that any part-timer has. And at that time, he determined that he couldn't meet the commitment and that he was going to resign as a part-time police officer with the Village of Orland Park. So typically, common practice for canine handlers and canines with any police department is if the canine can't do the job anymore or the handler retires, typically that village or city then offers the canine to the handler at a price. In late June, the village graciously offered Leo back to his handler for $1. And I can't say enough, but we thank Leo and his handler for the services that he provided those years. Now, moving forward to continue the program, officers, dispatchers, anyone at the police department, community service officers, are under a high stress situation on a daily basis. The numbers show that on average, officers experience 4 negative contacts per day with the public. And it takes a toll on you. That averages to be about 960 per year. There's studies have shown that animal assistance reduces stress and anxiety for the humans, for the police officers, for anybody that has to deal with that on a daily basis. So the department's seeking continuation of the therapy dog program in order to assist employees during these traumatic events that they go through on a daily basis. Therapy dog will continue to be available for community events, school events for the Village of Orland Park. One change that would be instituted is that we would assign the therapy dog to a sworn police officer as opposed to a civilian. We looked into some places to where we can get another therapy dog, and we found Tales of Redemption with the Cook County Sheriff's Police. We've had contacts with them as recent as today, and we are number 1 on their list to get a therapy dog. So as soon as that therapy dog comes in, Orland Park will get it, with the hopes of having it prior to our National Night Out. That's our goal. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leafblood.
With regard to the therapy dog being assigned to an officer in Orland Park, would that be then a full-time officer, not a part-time officer anymore?
Right, that'd be a full-time officer.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Malani.
Just further on that question, why was the decision to be a sworn officer versus a civilian?
I think in the past, we didn't, there wasn't much interest in it when it was first new. And from what I recall, I don't remember if a sworn officer had put in for it. But I think that having it for a sworn officer out on the street, daily interactions, being on calls, that officer can then, if there's a call for service in town that's in need of a therapy dog, that it would be another tool in our toolbox.
Okay, no, that's great, because, despite what's happened with Rich and Leo moving on, I agree this program should continue. I've seen the value that it provides, and it's great for, everybody that Leo was involved with, but also the community as well, and the outreach that we've done. So I think, definitely worth continuing.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Katsinas.
I just wanted to thank you to Officer Rich Miller. He was a 30-year employee of the Orland Park Police Department. Rich had stepped up with Leo, and anyone that knows Officer Miller, he has a really big heart, huge heart, and he's very, very caring. And I think he helped instill these values in Leo. This dynamic duo, as I used to call them, they helped comfort hundreds of people during the worst and the most traumatic time of their lives. It was a resident I had spoke to several months ago. She had called and said that she had, her mother was dying, and her mother requested to see Leo. And Rich and Leo answered the call. Officer Miller has been there for countless of officers, fallen officers, their family, other officers grieving death and illness. And, when Rich and Leo would walk in, I think they changed the room for the better. They changed the mood. So this is going to be a very tough act to follow. He's gonna, whoever takes the position, there's big shoes to follow, but I think the community owes Officer Miller and Leo gratitude for their dedication. And he really showed everybody what Orland Park stands for. Doing the right thing and being there when others call you to do so. So thank you, Officer Miller.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawler?
Chief Rossi, do you guys have a police officer candidate in mind who will be getting the dog? And do you believe that this person will be a longtime person with the police department?
So we would put it out to the officers and find out who has interest. We don't have anyone in mind right now. We don't know who has interest in it. We wanted to find out, make sure we can get the dog first, but we'll be putting it out shortly to see who has interest in it. But they do have big shoes to fill.
Any other comments? My comments are clearly, it's a valuable program. It would have been great if the availability had been there recently, which is the point of the whole program. So, Mr. Miller had to make a decision that best suited him and his career and his life. We have to move on, and it seems to me like the board appreciates the program and the value. So, there's a motion and a second. If there's no other comments or questions, let's call the roll.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge?
Aye.
It passes. Non-scheduled citizens and visitors for public comment on items relevant to village business.
All right, I don't think there's any for this meeting. Let's adjourn this meeting. Let's take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll make some adjustments to the agenda of the board item to get.
Mr. Chairman,
First, Mr.
move to adjourn.
Second.
We need a roll or a voice vote? Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This part of the meeting's adjourned. We'll be back in 5 minutes.